Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 114 of the Avocado Games Cast. I'm Merv,
Woo.
and today I'm here with the Kappa.
114 feels like a lot. I don't know why it feels like more than 112 did, but like it feels like we're getting like up there, like firmly in the triple digits now.
Yeah, we're almost near the age of the oldest person ever to live,
Yeah, there you go.
so
That's a good way to
we're
look at
getting
it.
there. On today's episode, I'm Bananas from Bananza. Payment processors don't want us to yank it, and generative AI is killing the games industry, but probably not in the way that you might think. But before we get to all of that, Kappa, how are you doing?
Oh, I am good. It has been a short weekend, but it feels like it's like getting a little bit cooler right now. I don't want to jinx it, but that kind of like August afternoon breeze starts to roll in now, so it's not as disgusting as it has been. So a little bit better, I would say.
Yeah, up here, it's been really, really hot,
Yeah.
and we've been getting wildfire smoke coming in from northern Ontario and Manitoba. So it's just been hazy today. Like I was
Oh yeah.
outside today, and in some other Discord groups I'm in, folks were like, "So, who's walking outside with an N95 today?" I was like, maybe I should have done that because I was walking around outside just breathing in all those particulates, giving myself the old lung cancer, if you will. Um, yeah, it's a weird world out there right now.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's other than that, weirdly, not been playing a ton of games. As much as I have been, I would say. But the ones I have been playing, I think, got a little bit to discuss at least on.
So, what have you been playing?
Well, I want to start with the Destiny 2 expansion, Edge of Fate.
Oh,
I
you're
feel
back
like
to Destiny. They
oh
brought you back
well,
in.
let's be careful there. I'm back to playing with my friends, and it's like as slowly Destiny's just become more of like the chat room we hang out in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
This
yeah, I
so
got
this one is very close to Destiny 3. It was if this was a movie, I'd call it a soft reboot, right? They've kind of done a whole bunch of changes to the armors, the weapons, the systems, everything in place. You got a power reset. Everybody was hovering, in like the thousands of powers. Now we're like back down to starting at 10. And you slowly climb your way up to, 200, 250 or something like that in a season. But um, a lot of change all at once, and the community is not happy about a lot of it. With going into Marathon, I think everybody was kind of assuming this Destiny expansion was going to be kind of like a let's fix some things, but nothing huge. That kind of like, and in MMOs, you kind of get that like, okay, we're going to sustain the product, but we might not grow it too much more, right? Um, so I don't think anybody was really too bummed about that, but I think what ended up happening was that so many of the systems changed all at once, and the cardinal sin of an MMO happened, and that's you started to see the treadmill underneath you. I know I've talked about this before, but like it is something that if you played enough MMOs, you know what I'm talking about, where you start to realize like, okay, I'm getting better so that I can do the thing, so that I can get better, that I can do the thing, so I can get like you start to not really feel like you're progressing, you're just kind of treading water. And that has hit me very hard this season of Destiny, where my friends are all, we jump on, we do the new raid, and the new raid was plagued with bugs. I mean, like the day one raid race, it's Destiny's big thing, right? Is the raid race. Over 80% of the teams that beat the raid race had a cheater on the team, which is
Oh
a,
wow.
a nightmare. I mean, like, you don't get that in most games, but to see that the only people who were really able to beat the raid had to do so by cheating is really kind of like, kind of like the nail in the coffin of that end game. If it's like if it's too hard for people who aren't streamers and you have to have cheaters do it, big, big, big problems, right? We tried day one, we were nowhere near like geared or capable or anything enough to do it. And then later on, they were like, yeah, we might have overtuned this. We might have, balanced this against some of the stuff that you don't have yet because of how we kind of changed post release what would be coming out, like weapon tiers and armor tiers and stuff like that. So the general conspiracy theory right now among the Destiny community is that they basically tested it with gear that because of how you can't get the gear until you do the raid. So how can you do the raid without the gear, basically, right? So people were kind of
Oh,
bummed out to
so
find out.
it's like they
Go ahead.
put the raid kind of on that treadmill, like
Yes,
towards the
yes.
end of that treadmill instead of like earlier in the middle,
Right.
where
So the day one raid races, they usually kind of like crank up the difficulty, right? So not only is it like, you got to learn the mechanics, you got to learn this, you got to learn that, but you're a lower level, the bosses hit harder, there's more, enemies, stuff like that, right? Which usually it's doable. I think that my group of, casual friends, I think we've probably cleared, I want to say 5 or 6 day one raids, which is pretty good. We're a good group of players, generally speaking. There was one that we like basically nobody completed. And I think it was like maybe 3 teams completed it because it was a very mechanically complex raid. And then this one, the problem was the bosses just became bullet sponges. The teams that were able to beat it did so by doing this thing that they call swapping. So basically, you have this gun and this armor, and you go to your pause menu really quick, and you equip a different gun and a different armor so that you can do a different thing well, right? Which is, debatable in the community. People don't like it, but the other thing about it is if you're on consoles, it's literally impossible to do that, right? You can't get like to that pause menu and everything fast enough that like a person playing on PC with like a NVMe hard drive can. So a lot of consternation among the community about the raid race, a lot of disappointment is the number one thing I would say, that like kind of seeing like, okay, we're really in the stage with Destiny where it's like, just get something out the door because we're all, I'm assuming, crunching like crazy on Marathon, right? Um, so that was disappointing. We faced so even after the raid race was over, you go to do like the regular raid. I mean, just bugs on top of bugs on top of bugs on top of bugs. So much so that we weren't able to clear the raid in the first week, which is for my team very, very, very rare. So real bummer there. The raid is kind of what you look forward to with the expansion, so that's left everybody's kind of a bad taste in their mouth. And then once you've got that, you don't have the raid to kind of soften the blow for the new expansion. All the other things start to kind of come out of the woodwork. All the little issues, all the little bugs and problems and things that weren't well thought out. The biggest one right now, I think that people are seeing, is that there's not like a smooth curve in power, right? MMOs always have this thing where it's like, okay, you're level 1 so you can fight rats, then you're level 10 so you can fight crabs, and you're level 20 so you can fight spiders, right? So you just kind of keep
right.
moving up the tier, right? Destiny's never really had that. So you have to give people a reason to, well, why does my character need to get stronger, right? It's typically been raids and GMs and things like that. They've gone away from that now. And what the thing that they've basically done instead is basically like, well, we're going to give you world tiers so you can make the thing that you've been doing all this time harder or easier. And then based on your world tiers is where the new loot and stuff comes from. It's very similar to what Diablo does, right? So while I don't think it works well in Diablo, I think some people might. It really frays at the edges of Destiny because what that means in practical terms is you're doing the same things over and over and over and over again, right? Which is not mechanically rewarding. It's not fun. You don't feel like you're just like I said. You see the treadmill now. I've run this thing 15 times, and at the end of 15 times, I'm 4% better. You know what I mean? Like, so, um, this feels like the wheels are coming off. And this was, I know people have said, this is not make or break for Destiny. The only thing that's make or break for or Bungie is Marathon. But I believe very full well that Marathon's going to flop. So now I think they're even killing the golden goose so that they can get Marathon out the door, which is a terrible decision, and probably one of the final ones the terrible group at Bungie is going to make. Well, not the developers or the actual people working, but the C-suite, right? This is going to be their last oops, we should have done this different type thing. um
Seems like the last hurrah before
yeah,
PlayStation fully
takes
assumes
over.
control.
Yep. And I think
Yeah.
I think after Marathon goes down with the ship, I think Destiny's out the window with it because this really left me the experience like, okay, I don't know. I can't read, people's minds, but this feels like very much like a company that's just done with it. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Let's get something out the door. Which sucks. It's a sad
Yeah.
end, and it kind of reminds me of the end of Halo too. You know what I mean? Like where it's just like, yeah. I mean, like you just get infighting and this and that, and studios arguing and stuff. And I don't know. I really feel like this was like a poor final showing, or either a final showing for Destiny or initial showing of the new trilogy that they're planning. All in all, just left a bad taste in my mouth. That's not the
In
only thing I've
some
been playing though.
ways,
Yeah,
I would say in some ways this is even worse than what happened with Halo because
yeah,
despite the horrendous development cycle and bad publicity afterwards and the issues that Halo Studios, formerly known as 343, the product that got out the door was a good product.
right, right.
And it just doesn't seem like they're even capable of doing that here. Like, I
Well,
know Destiny has had high profile bugs in the past in some cases, like the loot cave,
mhm,
but I've never heard it uh, have a reputation for being this glitchy before,
right, right.
which like portends some like
Yeah, you got
that
rid of the
it,
QA team,
or
and you got rid of the people who knew what they were doing, and you kept other people,
yeah,
and it was a mistake.
or they
But
shifted so many resources over to Marathon that they just don't have enough people
right.
to maintain the level of polish and quality that they need on Destiny 2.
And, you feel it in the game itself, which you never really want people to be like, okay, well, I can tell that this wasn't well done, well made. You never want to hear that about your game. Um, but like you're saying, like at least Destiny felt like it had a satisfying, or I'm sorry, Halo, you kind of get like a satisfying ending. And I do think that Final Shape, which was the previous expansion, was a very satisfying ending to the series. I think it was very well reviewed. People loved it, fun raid, stuff like that. So whereas a lot of people just were like, okay, I'm done with Destiny at this point because I got the whole story, I finished the plot, everything. This is, like I said, being like what I would call a soft reboot. Um, you know, People who are like, okay, let's go along for this ride. We've been at this now for however many years. Might as well see where this one goes. I think you've lost 80% of those people now, of the people who did carry on into the the new era, I guess that this one is. And I think Steam
Yeah.
numbers and stuff like that are really showing it. I think like this expansion was down like 70% over Final Shape. And
Wow.
yeah, that's huge, huge numbers. And then that's players on Steam. Now, who knows on, consoles and stuff, they're a little bit more tight-lipped, but all in all, I mean, I would say a disaster, but I don't know if they expected this or anticipated this or what, but um, you know, kind of a sad end for something that's been so big for me and my friend group for so long now.
Um, to be a little more charitable, how many MMOs and live service games other than Warframe have successfully navigated um, a soft reboot after a pretty definite conclusion to their
Yeah.
narrative?
Final Fantasy 14. Well, that was totally different, but yeah, I think it's hard to do especially like when the wheels come off of the actual in-game mechanics. I think it's hard to pull that off, right? I mean, even WoW had times when people were just left in droves, you know what I mean? Because they did
Right.
very big world switches and stuff like that. So while WoW is still the gold standard, there was definitely times where people were like, "Okay, I'm not interested in this expansion," right? So it's hard to bat 100% there. But I think even with the story being done, there was still enough cool stuff in the world. Shooting still felt great, all that kind of stuff. There was potential to kind of, bring it all back together, um, you know, put the gang back together and have a fun, new, cool, maybe a little bit smaller scale world or whatever you want to do, or just like the continuation of the stories, maybe go some, different directions in it. And it seems like that's what they wanted. But like what actually hit the player's hands is so poor and buggy and everything else with it that I can't believe they're happy with what came out. You know what I mean? And one thing about Destiny, and like even like in like its worst of times, like you would see like on I don't know like the game awards and stuff, like people are always like the customer facing like community managers and stuff. They're always great. They're informative. That's pretty much stopped, right? Now it's like very corporate, like, hey, everybody's having a great time with the raid. I hope everybody's having fun out there. Really exciting stuff. Like, not at all like having the temperature of the community be like, yeah, we messed this one up. You know what I mean? So what used to be this week in Destiny. Now it's this week at Bungie, right? Because they wanted to start incorporating Marathon in it. um, they're starting to read less like people who are playing the game alongside of us and more like corporate speak about how we should be excited at this kind of like minimum value product that we've been playing, and acting like it's the greatest thing ever. And I think a lot of people have been really kind of chafing at that when you're not even reading about like, you know, hey, a lot of people cheated to beat the rate, and they're like they've got like one sentence in there like, yeah, we don't condone cheating. Don't cheat. You can get banned. You know, that's it. Like they're not like, oh yeah, it's kind
Yeah,
of
like
weird. 80% of people who cleared the rate
what are
cheated.
you doing to like ban these people?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
that's what players
So
want to know.
it's it's been kind of a thing, man. I don't know. I've been processing it. I kind of like secretly hope because Final Shape was so good, and like that was when people were like, "Oh, they don't have it, they don't have it," and then Final Shape was amazing, and people were like, "Well, maybe they do still have it," but no, this one is like, I don't know what maybe it was like some Bioware magic type thing going on where they pulled it together last minute, but this one does not have it. So that's been my thing, past couple days or weeks, I guess. I don't know. I'm sure when it came out, but I have been bummed out, man.
That's a real shame.
Yeah.
Um, I I really do. As much as I bounced off Destiny myself, I really do wish well for it,
Hmm.
because it's one of the few games in that space. Like you have Warframe, I guess, in that live service shooter space, that has really managed to, on some level, make it work. I know the financials never really made sense for Destiny 2, and
Right.
that thing was kind of like bleeding cash for the longest time. Um, but it's, at least in concept, something that I'm interested in continuing to exist. And
Yeah, like I think they kind of swung for the fences, with the concept. Like if you're going back like to Destiny 1, you know what I mean? Like it was
yeah,
very ambitious as a plan. People laughed at 10 years. I remember when people they announced, hey, we're gonna have a 10-year lifespan game. People were like, yeah, right. I mean, they fucking nailed it. You know what I mean? Like it had ups and downs, sure, but yeah, they were able to make it 10 years and stuff. So uh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is kind of like a sign of the times and like we're getting back away from AAA back into AA. I've heard a lot of people kind of, thinking that's the future, especially after like Expedition 33 and stuff like that. But um, I don't know. I don't think you could have had the stars align as much for Destiny to do this. Remember, they did this kind of under Activision, kind of in the Blizzard house, not really in the Blizzard house, went independent, got bought out, all this kind of like stuff that's happened since for them as a studio. But, um, you know, it was easy to forgive a lot of the mistakes when, like, yes, they're technically an independent studio trying to make it work. No, don't get me wrong, they're gigantic. But now when they've got all this money from Sony, this stuff just feels terrible, So I don't know.
and
Yeah,
I don't think Sony wants to keep throwing good money after bad if they
no.
can't make it work.
And we
Um,
talked a little about that with the marathon delay, not quite cancellation, but who knows? You know what I mean? I don't think Sony's super happy with the way marathon's looking, and I think like every like alarm bell from Concord is going off, in studios about this. So, like one of the things we heard about Concord, remember, was like there was like toxic positivity around that game. You weren't allowed to say anything bad about it, or people would like lose their minds. I kind of wonder if some of that is going on with Marathon. They're like, well, it's Bungie. It's going to be good. It's Bungie. They know what they're doing. I mean, I
I
don't
would
know. I don't know
I
that
would
they
doubt it,
do.
honestly, with
Yeah,
based off all the reporting that has come out about Bungie, and the criticism that everyone's famous favorite vintage car owner Pete Parsons has
yeah,
faced. You got to think that Sony like higher ups are not happy with the situation and have been on the phone screaming at Parsons and his colleagues like
yeah,
pretty much nonstop for the past few months.
yeah.
Um, so hopefully they can muddle through. As disinterested as I am in Marathon, I do wish the best for the people working there, and hopefully they can pull it all together.
Yeah.
Um, let's move on to happier things. I've been really enjoying the game I've been playing. Um, Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say a few controversial things. Well, let me just set the stage first. This is the first 3D Donkey Kong game since DK64. and the first mainline Donkey Kong since Tropical Freeze on the Wii U. So it's
Which
been a
seems kinda
while.
crazy, yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah,
it feels like Donkey Kong was, like, once one of, like, the pillars, right? I guess in the 64 era, it really was, so
especially the SNES era where there
yeah.
were three Donkey Kong Country games,
Yep.
and now like he's always been kind of like recognizable, but has always played, pardon the pun, second banana to Mario.
Yeah.
Um, and so I understand why, if they had a Mario game in the pipeline, why you'd kind of deprioritize Donkey Kong. But at the same time, if you don't put out new Donkey Kong games, then the value of that
Nobody's
IP is
interested.
going to
Yeah.
decline.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're not going to get kids interested in Donkey Kong. Um, but now they've put out a brand new Donkey Kong. It's a 3D action adventure platformer game on Switch 2, and it has been compared a lot to Super Mario Odyssey. In fact, I've heard multiple people call it like a secret Super Mario Odyssey 2, and I get where they're coming from. It's the same basic structure. You've got a series of large open levels that are themed. Um, those levels contain lots of moons, or in this game's case, bananas, and your goal is to collect like hundreds of them through completing various small challenges. There are even portals into like these isolated challenge rooms, just like Super Mario Odyssey had. So structurally very similar.
Mhm.
But what you actually do in the game, completely different.
That's kinda interesting because one of the things I didn't like about Mario Odyssey was, like, the actual gameplay. So, that is
Yeah,
interesting. I like the
that's
world and the setup and everything, but, like, once I got into levels, like, okay, what hat do I need to put on or whatever, right?
yeah. I found that I both like Super Mario Odyssey was one of my favorite games that year. It made my top 10 at number 10. Um, but like I kind of agree. In that I found a lot of the gameplay in that game beholden to like what Nintendo thought Mario had to be.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
especially in that level or with that hat, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you would walk in the area and he'd give you the hat, and you're like, "Okay, this is what you want me to do. You want me to walk on fire or whatever," you know what I mean? Like, it just always felt like you were just at the mercy of whatever they want. It wasn't like a real, puzzle solver, like, "Oh, I can use this old thing differently to do this." It was like, no, you use the thing they give you to basically do it, and 2 minutes into the level, you usually generally would know what you had to do, and then it was just doing it. Does that make sense? Like, you're like, "Okay,
yeah,
well, I've gotta get this to get to here so I can use this, and this hat lets me do these following things. Now I just need to bounce off the walls and roll and turn into a snake or whatever, stuff like that to actually do it."
and it's not like that's unfun. It's
Right.
just there's like an element of disengagement where like the enemy you need to capture is right next to the thing you need to do with it, and
Right, right.
you're not really solving puzzles. You're really just executing,
Mhm.
and you're executing in ways that sometimes like felt like the level was designed around a set of obsolete mechanics from the 64 era.
Yeah,
Like
that's a good
3D
way to put it.
Mario has kept the same basic moveset for Mario. Like they've added things in, but it's the same basic moveset since 64. With the backward somersault, the triple jump, the wall jump, like all of that was present in Mario 64. They pretty much replicated exactly in Sunshine. There's a version of it in the Galaxy games, and then again in Odyssey. And like a lot of those were like that made sense in the 64 era because that's the first time someone had tried a 3D platformer in that way.
Right.
So having those kind of slightly clunky ways of doing things, like not just forgivable, totally understandable in the context of 1996.
Right.
But in the context of 2017, a lot of that felt obsolete, a little dated, not a little clunky. Like it had kind of not really incorporated anything from the past 2 decades of 3D platformers.
Right.
Um, a criticism that I'd lob even more at, say, Balan Wonderworld than
Oh,
Super
yeah.
Mario Odyssey, but there was a little bit of that. Um,
Because one of the things I think about, right, is I think I don't know, this might make sense to you because you've played a ton of platforms, especially. But do you kind of feel like Metroidvania has like taken over platformers in a weird way? Like you're given a skill, and then that's the skill you use to beat the level, and then you just kind of, but you don't ever really like interact or see that skill again. Um, like it doesn't like add to your like it doesn't add to like your puzzle solving. Once you've done it once, that's all the game really like interacts with it. There's been a
And
lot
that's
of
kind of the
platformers I
opposite
think
of
that
Metroidvania, right? Like
yeah, that's what I
Metroidvania,
mean.
you
That's what
get
I
the
mean.
skill and then you
Like a
keep.
platformer like touches it, but like it touches what makes a Metroidvania fun, but it doesn't like engage with it long term. Like you couldn't get, you know, there wouldn't be a stage in Mario Odyssey where you got a different hat other than the one it wanted to you to work with on that level, really to like expand on what you could do in that stage. Does that make sense? Like, you
Yeah,
were limited
it's
with the kit that you had. It wasn't like you didn't grow your character to have, X amount of skills. It was just you get the skill that they want you to use to solve the thing until they forget that you even had that and you don't use it again.
yeah, or like it'll pop up in another level, but like at exactly where you need it. Like
Right, right,
I think the
exactly.
lava blobs pop up in multiple levels, or like capturing Goombas happens in multiple levels, but it happens at specific places to do specific things. And you don't really like build skills that you can use in different places later in the game to solve various
Right,
challenges.
right. That's kind of what I get at, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I wouldn't say 3D platformers as a whole have done that. I think
Mhm.
that's really a Super Mario Odyssey thing
Okay.
with all like the different captures and that sort of thing. And I think 3D platformers actually have been more in the vein of what Donkey Kong Bonanza ended up being, where you do build skills over time and
Okay.
keep them keep permanent upgrades that you um, as you progress through the game. There are unique elements and unique mechanics of each level. But on top of that, there are skills that you keep from level to level.
Okay, I like that a
Um,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, I like from what you're describing. I think you would actually dig, no pun intended again, Bonanza, because it sounds like it addresses a lot of your problems with
Yeah.
Odyssey. Um, so like what it seems Nintendo's designers were facing in this case was a situation where like there's no real consensus about how Donkey Kong should move or behave. Like, there's a general idea. Donkey Kong is big, lumbering, strong. So all that's reflected in the mechanics. But beyond making something that felt like Donkey Kong, they weren't beholden to like, okay, Donkey Kong has to be able to do a backflip. Donkey Kong has to be able to do a side somersault. Like, there's none of that in there. So they
Right.
just designed bespoke mechanics for this game and then designed the levels around that, and it feels so much more freeing to be able to do this. Um, and yes, it makes Bonanza feel more like a 3D platformer from some other company that also makes 3D platformers, and it has a lot of that rare collectathon energy. But it's not like they gave up the Nintendo charm and polish and like general design principles. It's just a Nintendo platformer that feels like Nintendo wasn't hermetically sealed away from the rest of the industry and
Right.
actually observed what everyone else was doing, and kind of incorporated the best elements of all that into a 3D platformer.
I think
Um,
that's a really like I think that's been one of the things I've always said about Nintendo. It does sometimes feel like they're resistant to like learning from others. And I get it because when you've been kind of the top of the genre forever, I guess yes, it's easier to just say, yeah, we're just going to do what we know works. But there's been like you said, there's been a lot of advancement in platformers, and it hearing that it's in a Donkey Kong game. I think like you're saying, maybe they felt like they had a little bit more freedom than they would in a Mario game to experiment a little bit because he's not as set in stone as Mario.
yeah, and it does give this it does give the game a vibe of like uh they're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and off like really off the wall ideas that never would have made it into a Mario game. But like, sure, throw it in there. Like
Hmm.
the humor is goofier and wackier. Um, some of the level design ideas. honestly, like, you'd never see those in a Mario game. The fact that the levels are so destructible,
Oh,
they would
okay. I
never
love
let
that.
that happen in a Mario
Yeah.
game. Um, and like, I think some of the destruction's kind of overplayed. Like, you do destroy stuff in this game, but it's not the main focus. It's really navigating through the levels. You can't destroy everything. You can destroy quite a bit of stuff, but there's a lot
Mhm.
of unbreakable terrain in there because otherwise the whole experience would
Yeah.
kind of fall apart.
Not really a
Uh,
platformer if you can, yeah, destroy the stage.
yeah, I mean, on some level, it really isn't a platformer. It's really more of an action adventure game
Oh,
with
that's
some
cool.
platforming elements.
Yeah.
Really more of a 3D exploration game, and a huge focus on environmental puzzles compared to Mario Odyssey. A lot of like reading the terrain, understanding how to navigate it, understanding how different types of terrain interact with each other. So if you dig up part of one part of the level and you pick up a chunk of terrain, you need to know how that chunk interacts with another part of the terrain. Like different materials have different interactions with each other. Um, like some materials, if you throw a soft material at a hard material, it'll stick. You throw a hard material at a soft material, the soft material will break, stuff like that.
That's
Um,
very cool.
yeah, and there's like it's a little almost a little bit of like Breath of the Wild type energy in there, but in a way that's I've had Breath of the Wild really frustrating
Yeah, I
and
remember.
not
Yeah.
not very. I have a lot of respect for Breath of the Wild, but that game is just not for me.
Mhm.
This is like some of that Breath of the Wild energy in a package that is very much for me. Like that
Yeah.
kind of experimental spirit, without the frustrating survival mechanics and like the real obtuseness in how that game is structured. Um, it's here, it's like less possible to miss stuff. Whereas you're playing Breath of the Wild, there's so little direction given that at certain points you can just miss crucial things, and the
Yeah.
game will just let you do that. Here, the game will kind of like guide you through. Um, oh yeah, and finally, the there are permanent upgrades. There's a skill system. You
Oh,
use
baby. Yeah.
Yeah, you use bananas to buy skills.
Alright.
Uh, yeah, and there's also like instead of a bunch of different happy transformations that you get by capturing enemies, you get five different transformations that you can use to solve various puzzles or solve various traversal challenges. There's like a flying ostrich. Yes, they're aware of how stupid that sounds. It is. There's an elephant who can suck up terrain. There's a snake who can jump really high. Um, there's a zebra who runs really fast. And everyone, and like every time you activate one of these powers, it plays this really catchy music.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
the
Like a
zebra
theme
one's
song?
just Yeah, the zebra has a theme song where they're just singing "Zebra, Zebra" over and over again, and it's hilarious and amazing. Um, so yeah, I'm near the end. I think I have two more levels left to go. I've on like this is a strong game of the year contender, which is not something I say often about Nintendo games. I know I
Yeah.
joke very often. Nintendo's very good at making my eighth favorite game of the year. Um, this is the case where I think they really nailed it, unless it completely craps the bed in the next like few hours. Um, it's probably going to be my game of the year. With the caveat that I haven't yet played Clair Obscur. It's my backlog.
Okay,
I
there you
bought
go.
it.
I was
I'm
like,
going
yeah,
to
I've also
play it.
got one.
I'm going to play
Yeah,
it
pretty
right
much
after
locked in
Bonanza.
on. Okay.
And I'm guessing it's going to be like a race between Bonanza and Clair Obscur for game of
Yeah,
the
I can
year.
see that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have penciled in Claire already, but Claire Obscure. But man, to me that game is going to be tough to beat. But yeah, I mean it's good to hear because I don't feel like I've resisted Nintendo or anything. I just haven't found the thing that really to me felt like I don't know, like did a combination of new stuff plus it was enough to sell me on a console. Plus you know what I mean. I knew that I would enjoy it or have some replayability, but you pretty much got me with the skill systems, you know? I mean, like, that's what I've always kind of felt is like that persistence, you know, if you got something like that, I'm a lot more interested all of a sudden.
Yeah, like I'll say this for you. I don't think you should route and get buy Switch 2 to play this game right away.
Yeah.
But I think when you'll probably eventually get a Switch 2,
Yeah,
um,
exactly. The same with the Switch, eventually
this
get one.
should be like a game you definitely play when you get it. Because I think you'll
Yeah.
actually have a good time with this. If
Yeah,
like
'cause
especially what you're telling me based on what you didn't like about Odyssey,
mhm.
this really addressed pretty much every complaint I have about Odyssey. Like
'Cause,
it's
like, a
a
lot of the
game I
games I got
wanted.
a lot of the games I got into later on in the Switch were, like, were launch games that people really like, Toad Treasure Hunter. I like that one a lot,
Oh,
and,
Captain
that one
Toad Treasure
yeah,
Tracker?
that was one that, like, kinda slipped under everybody's radar, but I really enjoyed that one.
That
There's a
that
lot
was
of
a
games
Wii
that were
U
like
game,
that.
actually. I
Yeah.
believe it was ported to the Switch later.
Yeah, because
But yeah,
I got it late in the Switch's life, so that would make sense. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot that I mean, I just kind of like with Nintendo, especially. I just kind of when I get into it, I get into it. But I don't feel the pressure to like get it right away. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, Nintendo's they do their own thing. There's lots of fans I know of Nintendo. So, um, but yeah, I think that when I hear stuff like persistence and like worlds that kind of get built out more and more, I think that I really find myself a lot more pulled into that world.
absolutely. All right, moving on from Donkey Kong to Donkey Dong. Let's talk about adult content and payment processors.
Oh boy.
Uh,
Yeah, this is a good
so
topic actually.
yeah, just for our listeners, we're going to be discussing some adult topics. So just keep that in mind in case you're blasting this over the speakers at your workplace or something like that. Maybe put it on your headphones. Um, so let's just kind of recap what has happened. This is still an evolving story. By the time this episode comes out, maybe things will have changed. But here's what we know. Um, on July 11th, an Australian anti porn organization called Collective Shout published an open letter targeted at payment processors, um, telling of games featuring um, rape, incest, etc. in on platforms like Steam and itch.io. And they openly lobbied payment processors like Stripe and PayPal to like essentially tell storefronts, hey, if you continue to carry this material, we're going to stop processing payments. And the payment processors caved into pressure um, from Collective Shout and went to talk to Steam and itch.io. Um, on July 18th, Steam updated their publisher guidelines to explicitly prohibit games that violate payment processor standards and removed hundreds of adult games from sale. And then about 10 days later, itch.io followed suit by de indexing thousands of games with the not safe for work tag. Um, it didn't mean that they got rid of the pages, just that they wouldn't appear in search results. And that, I believe, um, the developers of those games couldn't earn any money from their sale. Um, on July 31st, itch.io began re-indexing free not safe for work games, but has not yet started re-indexing paid not safe for work games. Promise that some of them will get re-indexed where possible, but uh, to my knowledge, it hasn't started happening yet. And just to recap what's been going on in response, huge public outcry from the gaming
Yeah.
community. There's been a phone campaign to Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and Stripe. Um, Folks have been warning that this is a slippery slope towards banning more interactive content that social conservatives find objectionable, for instance, queer content. And most recently, GOG has held a protest giveaway of adult games.
You know,
So this is a fine mess.
yeah, yeah. It's weird that I don't know. Like I thought when I was younger, what's that? When I was younger, it's like,
Let's
okay, well, the world's not going to continue to get more and more puritanical. People are going to loosen up. I mean, like weirdly, like I feel like this is the most in my lifetime where I've like heard people like, "We've gotta think of the children, the porn, it's ever," you know, I mean, like, yeah, there's some problems. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's, definitely people who become addicted and stuff like that, but I wasn't expecting this to be something that would this seems like a battle we fought and won, when it was like whether it's violence or doom or, or anything else. I don't know. I don't know how this continues to be something that like we have to keep dealing with, but um, I'm not a huge fan of the slippery slope argument, just in general, just in life. I've always kind of felt it was like, okay, well, sometimes you got to make a stand. There's a right and a wrong, right? But this to me is like the time where, like, yes, I actually agree. This is like something where if you're just banning it because one group is offended and you're looking for like, very fine print type rules for payment processors to do it, I feel like we've kind of lost the plot because it's really easy to be like, oh, we're against games with rape. Are you pro rape? Well, no, obviously not. But, it's an interactive medium like any other art. So it's kind of hard to say, like, you know what I mean? What is the line that you draw? So I don't know. I mean, that's something that people can determine, but I don't like that the people who determine that being Visa and MasterCard. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I'm at with it. So I don't know. This is a gigantic mess though. And I really see this to me has the feeling of something that gets like quietly walked back in the dead of night, by somebody, like things just start popping back up. And they did what they could to appease the conservative group, and then now you can go back to playing your porn games because everybody forgot it was a thing. But the outcry has been, I think, the most interesting part of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's where you get all sides of gamers together on one thing. But yeah, this kind of feels like a little bit of everybody's like, nah, leave it alone, like because next thing this could be, I don't want you playing Doom, I don't want you playing Battlefield, I don't want you playing Call of Duty. All these other things start to kind of like you can find reasons that kids shouldn't play a shooter very easily. You could find reasons that kids shouldn't play whatever. And that's when you start the slippery slope, right? So um I don't know. I think that you've always had this ability to like single out porn games and make, oh, these are what all the creeps and weirdos play. But then like you said, like how far do we go until we like also, this is what all the LGBT people do and this is how they make your kids, one of them. And
Yeah.
obviously that's what
Yeah.
they've been doing in so many other things. And 20 years ago, I'd be like, "Oh, that's silly. I don't buy that slippery slope. They're not going to actually do that." But now, are you kidding me? Yeah, I absolutely believe that. People will fit whatever they can through the door to get their agenda made.
Oh, absolutely. That's the problem. This is never they never stop.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
They always have additional goals in mind, and they're not going to be satisfied with just one set of supposedly bad influences being eliminated from public consumption.
Right.
Um, and it's maybe Collective Shout stops here,
Yeah.
but other
Yeah.
organizations can pick up the torch and go further than Collective Shout. And that's what really that's what really makes me fear for the
Yeah,
future of the medium.
that combination and the arbiters of this being payment processors. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
like that. I remember when I was a kid, my parents had like a really religious phase, right? Like we were like, burning albums and stuff like that. Remember one year like we marched against NYPD Blue because they had a like a bare ass in an episode.
Yeah.
I think they said
Oh, I
like
remember
some,
that. They
yeah.
got in trouble with the FCC.
Yes, and it was like, "Why are we marching against this?" Like, I think that was, like, actually one of the weird things, like, that was, like, the started, like, the crack for my parents, like, "Wait a minute," like, they watched that episode and actually really liked it, so I was like, "Wait, this is stupid. Why are we marching against this?" And it was the same kind of idea, right? Like, this is phase 1, of that, but look how I mean, people felt we were marching at, like, a local Fox station who does not have any control over what NYPD Blue puts in their show, right? But that's kind of the workaround for these people. They get what they want however means necessary, right? And then if it's payment processors, it's payment processors. So I don't know. This feels gross to me. That's the main thing. I think this is an actual valid, yes, there's a slippery slope argument to be had. And I also think that we shouldn't be allowing PayPal to decide what we can and can't spend our money on, Like they process the payment.
Yeah.
That's it. That's their role in this interaction. I can easily
That's
find
the way I
another
see
one.
it too. Like, payment processors should have a mandate to process any legal transaction
Yeah,
that their clients want processed.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
and like, porn is legal
yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly.
legal in Canada, it's legal in the United States, and I'm fairly certain it's legal in Australia, um, where Collector Sound is based. So, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it seems like an
Um,
end around. I mean, it seems like a way they found a vulnerability because they knew if they probably went to Steam and said, "Take this shit down," Steam would be like, "No, we here's our policies. We're not going to take this down." So instead, they went around and they got it from the payment processors, which is not should be something they do. That's not their role in this in this world. I say I want to pay for this, they say yes, that's it, that's all I want them to do. you know um the rest of this seems weird. It seems very odd to me that we've gotten down how many years now until we've kind of figured out that, like, what's next, or we're going to kind of go through and decide, okay, well, here's where how we're going to get rid of this thing. We're going to do it through this system or that system. I just don't like it, man. It's very easy for me to see this being something that they do, to other things that they just don't like. So,
I mean, we've known for a long time that payment processors are a potential vector of attack
mhm.
on content we want to consume. Um, because, like, this is why OnlyFans got in trouble, right?
Yeah,
Because it turns out that a lot of people don't want to be associated with amateur porn,
yeah,
especially amateur porn of the more, let's say, paraphilic variety.
mhm,
Um, and again, I say it's legal, even if I don't dig it. I don't care if other people want to consume it. That's their prerogative. But that's apparently not how the rest of the world thinks. Um, so like, we know that these kinds of attacks have happened before, and they'll probably
right,
happen again. And I don't see a way that we stop these kinds of things from happening without changing the way payment processors function. Like, this needs legislation to, I guess, protect the liability of payment processors, or in this case, force payment processors to accept things that they find morally objectionable, provided that they're legal. Um, because aside from that, if you don't close that loophole, these groups will keep exploiting it every
yep,
single time, until the end of time. And then it just becomes a battle of publicity. And to the extent that the more, let's say, permissive or progressive side is louder, then maybe we'll be able to push back. But I don't think, unfortunately, that that side is ascendant at the moment, and it's bad faith attacks from social conservatives that are reigning the day. So, yeah,
yeah.
it,
Yeah, and especially when you're starting to see like like GOG and a few other companies, I think what's going to end up happening is there is money to be made. But you know what I mean? So, you know what? Hey, look, man, I'm the payment processor. I'll process whatever you want. You don't have to use PayPal. You don't have to use Square or Stripe or anything else. Hey, this is what I do. I process everything. I don't even care what it is. And then you have it, GOG says, hey, we'll sell whatever you want. Whatever Steam won't sell, we will. And that's when the market decides a little bit, right? I mean, like, okay, we know there's money to be made in adult content, and if you're not going to be the one making it, somebody else will. So I don't think Steam is coming at this from a very firm, like, philosophical stance that they're against this. I think they just didn't want the drama, and they realize now that the drama is coming the other way, right? So, yeah, I mean,
oh, they've put payment processors on blast because initially
yeah,
MasterCard said, well,
but Steam,
hey, it
yeah,
wasn't us, it was our partners.
yeah,
And then Steam was like, yeah, our partners, your partners said that it was coming from you folks.
yep.
Like, they called MasterCard's bluff. Um, on the
Steam
note
is the
of
wrong
like, yeah, you're right. Steam kind of is the wrong company to mess with.
Yes,
Like,
that's what I was
Valve
gonna say.
is really powerful,
Yeah, they
and
have
they're
a
a private
monopoly.
corporation, not beholden
Yeah,
to shareholders, so reputation doesn't really matter in that way. So if any company can fight it, it's Valve.
mhm,
Now the question is, will they fight it? I don't know. Like, here's the problem. Valve actually doesn't have that many tools in their toolbox.
Right.
There are alternative payment processors um, for certain like fetish porn sites.
Sure.
Um, they're explicitly geared towards stuff like that because what's the kind of content that gets the most chargebacks? Porn. And so, because this kind of stuff is deemed less safe for payment processors to process, the mainstream ones won't touch it,
Hmm.
and the less mainstream ones charge huge fees to compensate for the fact they'll have to process chargebacks and potentially deal with legal issues. So, like, retaining the services of one of those payment processors becomes really expensive.
Yeah.
Valve could probably afford it. Itch.io probably not. So maybe
You know,
Valve goes and like retains the services of one of these companies. Um,
and in
but
the scheme of things, as like, obviously, like in the UK, in America, they're kind of moving towards this like verifying age for porn sites, right?
yeah.
Valve is actually in a pretty good position to do that anyway on Steam, because as far as I know, you have to have at least one verified purchase with a credit card, right, on Steam. Isn't that right? I don't know if that's still that way. I think you can have a free
No,
Steam account, but
you can have a free Steam account and you can use gift card cash to buy games
oh,
on
you can.
Steam.
Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure about that because I remember for a while, like you could redeem games on Steam, but until you had one verified with credit card purchase, your account was in like a limbo or something like that. But
Might still be
um,
like that. I don't know because the first thing I ever bought on Steam was with a credit card on Steam. So
yeah, because I
yeah,
I
I don't
think
know.
I seem to remember like when my kids had one, like I gifted them like a bunch of games, right? But I think like they had a limited user account. I had to physically go on their thing and buy. I think I either had I think I added money to their Steam wallet is what did it, right?
Okay.
But I don't know that. I think you have to like physically make a purchase on it for you to get outside of that like lockdown account, right? Um, so I don't know, but like what I'm saying is at least Steam can basically tie, okay, we're not going to give you, access to these games without a verified credit card, which the majority of Steam, people probably have, right? Because most of them are adults, and the ones that don't just don't have it. I think they have a pathway to limiting this in a smarter way than just taking it from the store because payment processors said to, you know. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think the easiest way to just figure this out is just let people buy what they want, man. If it's weird, if it's creepy, hey, look, I'm not a big fan of this argument, but no one was hurt making, you know what I mean, those pixels, right? There's a lot of like really scuzzy, terrible stuff that happens in porn. And, I'm not saying like, anything goes in that stuff, but, at least let's come at it from the perspective of, these are not real people, first of all. So, no feelings were hurt, I guess. But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think you're gonna.
like the girl in your anime pillow was not real.
Right? Yeah,
So like
yeah. I mean,
it
can it
doesn't
lead to
matter.
like dangerous or like weird or like bad
It might
things
be
down the line?
weird, but like it
Absolutely.
doesn't matter how much you like mess with the girl on your Dakimakura. She's
Yeah,
not real. It's
yeah.
fine.
And same in a game. I mean, like,
Hitomi can take the tweaking, you know what I mean?
right.
Um, so like you're absolutely right. It's this bizarre conflation of like the virtual with the real. There's almost a sense that because interactive, it's like corrupting the brains
Right,
of the
exactly.
consumers more.
And we've been around long enough to remember the last time this was this discussion. Yeah, it was violence, right? You're doing the violence in Doom. That's why it's more dangerous than watching it in a movie. You know what I mean? They pulled this same shit like our generation ago. You know what I mean? I remember this being very like, like, oh yeah, yeah. When you play Doom, you're killing the people. That warps and twists your brain and stuff like that. And then, we went through all this before and
Yeah,
here we are
because
again.
I spend a lot of my real life killing demons on Mars.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 So
Like,
same kind of thing though, here we are again, man. It's weird.
absolutely. It's how do I put this? It makes me feel makes you feel a certain level of, I don't want to say despair, but discouragement that we're still having these debates. We have to have them about each individual issue. Like
Right.
people
Yeah.
can't recognize the broader principle at play,
Yeah. We're
which
doing this
is,
again. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
if
I
it's
know
legal
exactly
and
what you
no
mean.
one got hurt, why does anyone care?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. If it's one of those things where it's like, you can have the debate all you want about like, hey, does this breed some kind of, mental deviance or like, this leads to people having, like, bad, actual thoughts or something. Who knows, right? But that's not exactly a thing you're ever really going to be able to convince people of, right? There needs to be like actual studies and proof and stuff like that. Look, how long have we just had stepsister porn in porn now? 10 years, 5 years? It's been a while, right? And, like, any studies going on with that? Because that's just we just okay, say that's normal and we're cool with that, but, in a video game, it's bad somehow? I mean, what are we doing? Like, there's lots of problems, and, it's the one aspect I think, human sexuality, you can't really put science to, right? People are into different things, but I don't like me being into something or not being into something being decided by PayPal. Like, let's get a little bit more of a, actual science, I guess, here or something.
I wonder if I'd even run that study. Like
Yeah.
differential availability, like your treatment is like differential availability of stepsister porn by I don't know
Right.
region or by time, but like what's your outcome variable?
Yeah. Yeah, like
Like
who's
is
more into stepsisters? Like
like how do you even measure that? Are you gonna like are you gonna go around like interviewing people? Um so who did you side with? Jebediah
yeah.
Springfield or
Uh, rate how hot your
Shelbyville?
stepsister is on a 1 to 10 scale, just like over the next 20 years and see. Yeah,
Just like send out that survey, make it part of the census.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so I mean, I think as we've kind of, you know, I wouldn't say just in general, but like porn's gotten a little bit more maybe like complicated, a little bit more, nuanced. There's more specific to certain things that people have been into. I think when you start to open that door, lots of little things that are actually fetishes get portrayed as like mainstream or like, you know, this is a fetish, but it doesn't necessarily mean this is what I'm going to do to a real person, right? And I think that's what we've always known when it comes to live porn. I don't know why we're kind of just assuming that because somebody played it in a video game other than that kind of like doom argument like we were talking about, where it's somehow worse because you're playing it. I gotta think that that's what they're kind of pushing in that case.
Yeah. And like on some level, because it's a video game, because you can you're not limited by the bounds of like human bodies. You can
Right,
display
yeah,
all sorts of other
crab
paraphilia.
woman or whatever, yeah, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
it's
In
it's
some
not a real
pieces
person.
yeah, in some pieces
Yeah,
of paraphilia that would be illegal if you were to depict them with real people.
right,
Um and so again, I get why it makes people uncomfortable, but those things are legal to depict with virtual actors
yeah.
and like pixels. So, not in
You
Canada. They're actually it's
yeah,
actually not legal
it,
to say
kidding
have
me?
fictional pedophilia is actually illegal in Canada, but is legal in the
Oh
United
yeah,
States.
I got that. Yeah,
Um,
I thought you meant
so
like crab girls or something.
oh,
Like
crab girls
Canada.
are very legal in
Okay.
Canada. So that's the funny thing. Like in practice, Canada has more in principle on paper. Canada has more restrictions on pornography than the United States.
Hmm.
In practice, um, way fewer restrictions.
No.
Like Canada's a lot more permissive, despite the fact that there are actual speech restrictions in this country as compared to the United States. Um, but
Jeez.
again, I do worry. Like this is one group in Australia, and it has had
Yeah.
global consequences.
Yeah.
So in lots of places where consuming this stuff would otherwise be legal, like Canada, United States, who knows about the
Well,
UK these days, but like
because even in
France
just
or Spain,
even
yeah.
in just general, Australia has very odd video game rules. They've always had just kind of their own like, list of things that are allowed and aren't allowed just in Australia. And most of the times, games have just edited or not released it in Australia because of stuff like that. So I think they kind of found that they're, for whatever reason, Australia's a little bit more, you know, conservative maybe on some stuff, and then that's kind of what they're hoping on that it flies in Australia, and then therefore they apply to everywhere else.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Australia like where like Fallout was like super restricted and stuff, and like a couple other games? I know Fallout for sure, but like drug use and like alcohol and stuff, I think is really issues there.
Yeah, they had to change, I think, the name of something and the depiction of it in
Yeah, I can't. It's
Australia.
someone with
Like, I think you
drugs. Like
inject yourself in Fallout.
I think it might be
They couldn't
that.
just depict that. I've read about this before. We'll put it in the link up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
well,
hopefully
get them
this
while
all
you
gets
can, I
sorted
guess.
out.
Stock up on them
Oh,
porn games while it's legal, right? And it's free on
it,
GOG, right? They're releasing a whole little
yeah.
porn bundle.
It was. I think that bundle has closed
Sold
as of
out.
about
I
five
think it's
hours
sold
ago.
out. Yeah.
Or
Uh,
they're only offering it for 48 hours.
oh, well, yeah.
So
Because I looked at it
yeah.
not too long ago. I was just curious, but it was like when I went to redeem it, because I'm very principled, and that's why I'm doing this. It was said something like, "There's a lot of people redeeming this. This may take a while for it to hit your library."
Oh
And I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, that's kind of cool. Like that many people are
Hey,
doing
I
this."
got my free copies of Postal 2 and Hoonie Pop.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It just
Honey
came
Pop
with
or Hoonie Pop? Yeah.
I don't know.
Honey
That
Pop?
game is I have long told people, anybody who would listen, I get it's a porn game. There's absolutely porn. That is the best match 3 game I've ever played. And ever since I played that, it's been hard for me to play other match 3 games where I can't slide the whole row. That sliding that row, you'd have to see it in practice, or I don't know if you've played it or whatever, but that shit was a
Not yet.
game changer to me. I love that. So like like a normal match 3, right? Like the things have to be like right next to each other, right? So like you move, you got orange, blue, orange, and then in the row to the left you got orange, so you can move that one over to the left, right, and make the match, right? And honey pop, whichever one, you can slide the whole row left or right, and then make a match. But then also like in in order of magnitude, you can also make 5 or 6 matches the same way on the same line by moving the line left or right, which is so beyond addictive. Like just to see it in
Oh, it's
practice.
almost like Tetris type, like multiple blocks going in one
Yes, so you
direction.
can if you get lucky, you can move a line and get like 3 or 4 matches per line, right? And then each little line that you match has like a different thing that happens. So like if you match hearts, it makes her more lusty, or if you match music, you
My
appeal more
God.
to her adventurous side, which sure, whatever. But that little that sliding that shit felt great. I don't know what it was. I love that though.
Well, I now own it, so I can explore.
Just yeah, just
Um,
don't pay attention to stuff going on the right of the screen. Just make those matches. You'll be
I'll just like put like a black piece of
yeah,
construction
yeah.
paper
I can't
over
look
the
at
right
this.
side of my screen, and turn off all the sound, and then I can play Honey Pop as Jesus
It's
intended.
I will say too, it's a very funny game. There's some pretty good writing in it. It's very like sarcastic, and it pretty much knows what it is, which is good. It's not trying to, I think there's like a fairy that guides you, and she's very sarcastic and is like, "You just want a goon. I know what you want." It's pretty good. Yeah. Anyway,
I
yeah,
mean, I like to work for it. That's what I'll
yeah,
say.
yeah. I got to make those matches first.
Um, well, I think we'll take a short break, and
Sure.
when we come back, we will dive right into the world of generative AI. Stay
Oh boy.
tuned. Welcome back to the Avocado Games Cast. I'm here with the Kappa, talking about Destiny and Donkey Kong and porn. Um,
Yeah. Just your
And
average Sunday night.
yeah, your average Sunday night with I mean, someone has to have written like Donkey Kong. Um, Zavala, is that a character from
Yeah,
Destiny?
yeah. And it
Like
was
someone
Lance
has to
Reddick
have
who
written
died.
like Zavala DK slash.
Oh, out there, I'm sure. I bet you that next to Overwatch, I bet Destiny is top 5 Rule 34 if I had to put money on it.
Um, like I can go to payheal.net and check.
Okay.
But
Maybe it's not it's gonna be definitely up there, I think.
I mean there are some like pretty. I don't say like Destiny's not really horny, but it has like
Yeah.
horny energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's because
Like
like, the people live forever, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's kind of
like
like, well, you're eventually you're gonna let's take vampires. Of course they're gonna fuck.
yeah,
You live
just
forever,
like
what are you gonna lose?
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
No sex happens in Destiny, but the characters definitely fuck.
Yeah, there's a really good lore tab in one of them where, Marisov, who's, like, definitely everybody's, like, dream waifu in that game, right? She has an like, she sleeps with one of the Crucible announcer, he's voiced by Lenny James, right? And he's notable for, like, always wearing this helmet, and it's got, like, a twisted horn and stuff, and, I don't remember exactly how the lore card goes, but, like, at the end of it, it's like the helmet stayed on. It's like, that's so good. I was
It's
like, "Yeah, they know
incredible.
it." Yeah. Yeah,
They
it's a pretty
know
good one.
they're fucking. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Um, so we're actually are here now to discuss or kind of synthesize a bunch of stories that have been happening in the game business, the wired tech business, over the past several months. And this kind of starts with what happened in early July at Microsoft with 9,000 employees getting laid off. And just to kind of set the stage, I'm going to put a small disclaimer out here. Nothing that I'm going to say today should be construed as an endorsement of the Microsoft gaming leadership team. Like,
Mhm.
this isn't about necessarily about blame shifting per se, but it is about explaining why these things are happening in a way that actually reflects reality. Because I think what has propagated through, especially like quick takes on Blue Sky and on forums,
Yeah.
um, are is a lot of, I would say, inaccurate narratives about what's actually happening and why certain decisions are being made. Um, And I'm not saying this because I feel the need to defend certain millionaires and criticize other millionaires. I'm saying this because I think it's important for us to understand how business works
Right.
if we are to fight against the ravages of capitalism. Um, so Microsoft lays off 9,000 employees in July. Um, Many of those layoffs coming from gaming. There were headcount reductions at Rare, ZeniMax Online, King, the makers of Candy Crush, and various studios that work on Call of Duty. At King, and we'll get into this in a little bit, some positions were lost because of the AI tools that those people helped develop. Like they made the tools that put them out of a job, which is just kind of wild.
Mhm.
Um, the Initiative, which is the studio that was in charge of the Perfect Dark reboot, got shut down, and as a result, Initiative's Perfect Dark reboot was canceled, as were Rare's Everwild and an unannounced MMO shooter IP from ZeniMax Online. And also, it seems like Contraband, which is being made by Swedish group Avalanche Studios, might be canceled, but there's been no confirmation on that. Avalanche Studios is not owned by Microsoft; it's owned by
Right.
actually a Danish holding company. I looked it up earlier today, but they were contracted to make this exclusive for Microsoft, and who knows if they still are. So initially, what
That's one
happened?
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say that's one of the things too that I definitely wanna talk about as we get into it a little bit is the rise of the holding company. So but keep
Oh
going.
yeah. Yeah, we'll get. We should definitely get into that. A lot of opinions about things like Embracer, and
Right.
I'm going to look up the name of the Danish holding company that owns Avalanche later for this episode. So initially there was a lot of ire directed at Microsoft gaming leadership, like, how did Phil Spencer screw this up yet again? But then reporting started to indicate that something else was going on, and that this was in large part about Microsoft kind of redirecting investment, particularly towards artificial intelligence initiatives. And then on July 24th, an open letter from the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, pretty much just flat out said it. Like,
Right.
it's like that I think you should leave. He admitted meme,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was effectively that. He was just flat out
Yeah.
saying, yeah, uh, we had to kill a bunch of jobs because we want to make AI Jesus.
Yes.
And that
And
seems really
I
bizarre.
but I don't think that's unique among any of the other tech giants. I think he's just maybe the first one to come out and say it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I think
yeah.
Apple, Google, Facebook, well, Meta, I think Amazon, everybody else is really feels like they are all
Yeah.
way behind in this space, and a lot of them don't want to be the ones paying Nvidia to do it. You know what I mean? They want to
I
be
will
able to.
say Apple's probably been a lot more conservative than other firms in this regard, but
Yes,
yeah,
I think they're further
definitely
back. Yeah,
Nvidia, Google, um, Meta, and Amazon have been all in on all of
yeah,
this stuff. Um, and like, this seems bizarre, right? Like, why
right.
would you
Yeah,
throw away all this money at AI? If you look at how Microsoft is structured, though, things start to make a bit more
I
sense.
agree. Yeah, I feel
Like,
like
like
go ahead.
Microsoft Gaming is a small part of a segment of a much larger corporation. So Microsoft divides their activities for financial reporting into three segments: productivity and business processes, that's Office, LinkedIn, other enterprise software; intelligent cloud, so that's Azure, cloud services, some consulting, GitHub. This would be the segment under which their uh, software solutions for the IDF would fall under,
Hmm.
and more personal computing. So that's how most of us interface with Microsoft. So Windows, gaming, Bing, news services, and devices like Surface tablets. Um, that last group, more personal computing, is the least profitable out of these three
Right,
segments. Like
and it's
31%
probably
gross margin sounds like very high margin, which it is overall. Uh, that's compared to 52% for productivity, which is
right.
wild, and 47% for intelligent cloud.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think where Microsoft likes to be is in a product that you use it and you don't even know it, right? And it's become so ubiquitous that it's just you use Azure servers and it's not even an option. You use Windows and it's not even an option, right? I think they realized early on that's not ever going to be Xbox, right? There's always going to be somebody else trying to play in that space. So we'll make the money. 31% ain't bad, you know? But really what we're doing is we're selling, it's almost like a glorified tech demo in some ways for like the Microsoft services that they're really trying to sell, right?
yeah, and
Um,
it's not where they're making the vast bulk of their money. I would guess that gaming overall probably has a slightly smaller gross margin. I assume that most of that's coming from like Windows. Bing is probably not making a lot of money. Let's be real.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's overall it's a less profitable sector, and it's also growing much less fast. Um, I calculated the year-on-year growth for the three segments, looking at their financial statements. And this is year-on-year growth in operating income: 15% for personal computing,
mm,
16% for productivity and business,
yeah.
but 24% for intelligent cloud by comparison.
There you
So
go.
the fastest
Yeah.
growing, high margin. That's where they're putting their money these days. It's in
Yep.
intelligent cloud. It's in Azure cloud services, and this is where the bulk of their like enterprise level AI stuff is going.
Yep. And even when we talked about this, I mean, oh man, Sony's killing Microsoft. So guess what servers they're using? Microsoft don't care. They're all on Azure, right? Like so. they're getting paid every time you play a Sony game too. It's all very weird for them because, like I said, they like to sell you products that you don't even know you're using, and I think that's why to them, I think the gaming market is something that they dabble in and they've never intended to really win. I think that's easy to say now after the fact, but I think they just kind of lucked into Xbox 360 being as great as it was. You
I mean,
know?
I think
Um,
I think they did intend to win. Like
mhm,
that was in the Xbox era. They wanted to take out Nintendo and Sony.
right.
Now I think they got more realistic about that in the Xbox One era, and that's when they pivoted. Initially,
Yes.
they wanted to win because that was Ballmer's vision. Steve Ballmer's vision, former CEO, was to dominate the living room. Satya Nadella, when he came in, replacing Ballmer, had a very different vision, which is he was the first mover to get into cloud
Right. Yeah. And
compared to
and
the
then
other tech
that's when
firms.
Xbox went to cloud as well.
Yeah,
Um,
so
yeah.
Xbox essentially returned to their enterprise roots.
Yep.
Um, and so the living room became a lot less of a priority. But for some weird reason, I don't know, maybe Phil Spencer was really silver tongued. Um, Nadella thought of gaming as a priority.
Mhm.
No idea why, because it didn't fit with the rest of the strategy. Maybe he saw it as a way to like essentially put a tech demo for cloud services out there to like
Sure.
run games off the cloud. I have no idea.
And plus, it
But
was kind of Microsoft's attempt to be cool, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like
maybe,
instead of being the Excel guys, right? Like maybe we're going to be the gamers and stuff like that. So I think there's a little bit of that too.
maybe, yeah, it could be like a public image thing. But
Yeah.
whatever the case, Nadella has lost interest in supporting gaming.
Yeah.
Like compared to where he was 3 or 4 years ago, he no longer thinks that gaming is worth investing in
But AI
compared
is.
to AI and cloud.
Yeah.
And that's where you end up with like Microsoft redirecting their resources to more profitable and faster growing segments. Again, doesn't mean
Mhm.
gaming is unprofitable. Just
Yeah.
we know, in fact, that um, through testimony that leaked from the FTC trial, that Microsoft gaming actually was profitable in 2022.
Hmm.
Um, Now, based off public financial statements, you can't break out gaming separately from the rest of personal computing. But I did some back of the envelope calculations, and gaming would need to account for over 50% of operating expenses under more personal computing for it to be unprofitable. It currently accounts for 35% of revenue from that segment. So it would need to be like, it would need to have expenses that are disproportionate, very disproportionate with its share of revenue for it
Right.
to be
Which I
operating in
think,
loss.
and when you're talking disproportionate, I think where we're probably seeing the most disproportionate is in Nvidia, right? I mean,
Oh,
their worth
yeah,
is
we'll get to that in a
okay.
second.
I gotcha.
Um, like, I do want to emphasize though, Microsoft Gaming, probably profitable. Probably not as profitable as cloud, or
Hmm.
almost certainly not as profitable as cloud. Um, and people who are asserting that like gaming has not brought Microsoft operating profit ever are just absolutely full of shit. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's just not true. People who are asserting that Game Pass is unprofitable. Like you might have other criticisms of Game Pass. I have criticisms of Game Pass. I'm not a Game Pass subscriber. Um, but if you're out there asserting that it is definitely unprofitable with no numbers to back up what you're saying, I'm sorry, you're full of shit.
Yeah. Now
You can't be saying these things with that level of confidence.
I definitely agree, and I've just been going by gut feel. I think the argument is I've always thought Game Pass was profitable. The question is profitable. Is it more profitable than it would be selling the games, right? And I
I
think
actually
the
have no
answer
idea on that.
there, yeah, but I think the answer there, just going off my gut again, I think the answer there is yes too, right? Because I don't just how I've changed how I've bought on PC, right? Which, doesn't really have Game Pass right now, but I found myself waiting far, far, far more for sales. Even in the time when Steam has gotten away from the 90% sales, I'm waiting for the game of the year. I'm waiting for the 60, 50% off, right? I'd probably be doing the same for Xbox if I didn't have the Game Pass, going. I might not have bought Avowed until it came out at half off, and I played it and I loved it because it was on Game Pass, and I like to say free, but we know it's not free. It's part of the subscription, right? but I feel like the easiest thing for me to justify has been Game Pass. I mean, more than Netflix, more than Peacock or Disney Plus or any other like streaming service I
Yeah.
had, Game Pass has been easy for me to say this thing is worth its money. And
Yeah,
so
but
if
that
I'm saying that,
keep in mind
go
that
ahead.
it's also reduced price paid per purchase. Like
Right,
because
right.
it's a much smaller subscription fee per month. Like maybe the math works out. I don't know. Maybe it is less profitable overall than just selling the games individually, but it's pretty clear that you one cannot make with a high degree of confidence the statement that it is unprofitable.
Right.
We just don't know based off what's publicly released, and a lot of things would have to be a lot of things would have to go wrong for it to be consistently unprofitable year after year after year. It just does not make sense given the financials of Microsoft. Um, so that's at
Yeah,
least where I'm on
hearing
this.
you run the numbers, I think makes me feel better about just basically how I've felt about, Game Pass for a while. Because I think that Game Pass is the future. I've said it for years and years and years, right? And I think Microsoft was ahead of the curve with a streaming console. They were just one generation too early, right? You remember,
Yeah,
infamously, like,
I
that
don't
whole
like.
thing.
I'm not here to talk up Microsoft. Like I don't
Mhm.
care whether Game Pass is like the future or not. I like, but it's clear that this model is
It's
not
working.
definitively unprofitable.
Right. But I guess what I would say is what I hope this would do though is put Sony and Nintendo sort of like to get into this mindset, right? Of like gaming as a service so that I can start to play these games where I want to, right? And instead of having to
Yeah,
lock myself into a console every 3 or 4 years. 'Cause, you start to feel it now when it's like, okay, well, I don't want to buy a PS5, but when I can play all this other stuff wherever I want, right? So I don't know. I guess that's kind of where I'm going with it. I do want I've bought into if there's anything about Microsoft I bought into, it's the play the game where you want to play the game thing that they've going on, you know?
yeah. I mean, sure. That is the model they've pursued, and other companies are going to pursue whatever models they want. And as long as those models continue to turn a profit and they can't make higher returns elsewhere, they'll continue doing whatever they do and make the money off of it. Um, Whatever the case, it seems like whatever profit Game Pass is making is just not enough for the Microsoft higher ups. And
Right.
so Satya Nadella, seeing that, hey, cloud is making way more money in terms of gross margin these days and is growing way faster. Hey, why don't we go all in on this? Um, so to me, this is a really risky gamble. AI is gaming seems to be a steady product line.
Right. Yeah, and AI seems like something where I think at the end of the day there's going to be 2 or 3 AI winners. There's not going to be 200. You know what I mean? Like
I don't think
uh,
there'll be any winners. I think this bubble's gonna burst.
right.
But
Yeah, but the ones that survive the bursting are going to be maybe, Nvidia maybe because they've got at least on the hardware side of things feel like they've got to run Chat GPT only because of like name recognition, right? And then now you've got to pick one of
ChatGPT's financials make no sense. They're
right. Yeah,
fucked.
exactly. Yeah.
Nvidia's going to be the big winner out of this. Microsoft will lose hard, but they'll stay alive because they have so many other profitable product lines.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Like
not going anywhere.
they're not going anywhere. They've got all their enterprise stuff that will just continue to make them money in perpetuity. So as long as they don't kill those golden geese, they'll be fine in the future. Um, but yeah, let's get into Nvidia now,
Mhm.
because just today, it broke that Nvidia is probably going to be
4
reducing the prices.
trillion? Yeah.
Oh, that actually came earlier, but with the news that
Yeah,
broke
I saw
today,
that and I was, "Whoo,
yeah,
that
the
is
news that broke,
insane."
yeah, the news that broke today though was that uh, Nvidia is probably going to be reducing the price of its 5000 series cards because they oversupplied and
Yeah.
the stock is just piling up at wholesale and they're not able to move product because it's way too expensive. So how does Nvidia, the famed makers of the name in PC graphics, get into a situation where no one wants to buy what is at least to gamers, their flagship product.
Right.
Um, and to tell that story, we have to reach back to last year. In 2024, Nvidia became the most valuable company on the planet,
Yeah.
surpassed Microsoft and Apple, and this year reached 4 trillion US dollars in market capitalization. That was on July 10th, 2025,
Now,
which
thinking
makes
about
it the
this,
most valuable company ever.
right, and thinking about this, what percentage of households do you think in their house they have, let's say, an Apple product, right? 60, 70%, right?
No
What
idea.
about a Microsoft product? I'm just guessing, you know what I mean? But like, what percentage of
Again, like,
households do you think have an Nvidia product in them? Like 10? You know, like it's
I mean, they might have Nvidia chips. Like Tegra chips are in a lot of stuff,
yeah.
but and like Nvidia chips are in a lot of cars too.
So just to like be like that valued, see, and like kind of almost under the radar when you're a $4 trillion company ahead of Microsoft, Apple, all these
Yeah.
other companies. I mean, I don't know. Like Intel made a shitload of chips for a long time, and they were never anywhere this high. You know, so I don't know
Uh,
if it's the making angle or if it's the AI stuff that's really kind of driving
oh,
Nvidia to be so insane.
well, that's a couple of things. Like you're saying, okay, Nvidia doesn't have a lot of products in households. Not a lot of
Right.
visible products in households. Like, what's consumer visible or consumer facing? It's the graphics cards. There
Right.
aren't that many PC gamers in the world. Um, we're a rare breed. Um, I mean, it's popular enough hobby that like it's a sustainable business, but where does Nvidia interface with the average person? The chips in their vehicles, the
Right.
chips in their cell phones, like the Nvidia Tegra chip that's like the variant of the Nvidia Tegra chip that's in their Nintendo Switch. Like that is where Nvidia tech enters most people's households. It's all that stuff. Like they don't even know they're using Nvidia tech.
Sure.
Whereas
But like,
you're using Windows from Microsoft. You know you're using an iPhone from Apple.
yeah.
Um,
But then
and
meanwhile,
it's like that.
Intel,
It's that under the radar thing. It's
yeah.
exactly what you were saying earlier about Microsoft. Like it's an ideal business is where you don't even know you're using the product and you're still paying for it.
Right. And then, but you've got the other chip makers right now who are flailing, you know,
Oh,
Intel,
absolutely.
AMD, like just
AMD's
not. AMD's
so
okay, but yeah.
here's the funny thing about AMD. AMD is actually not flailing these days because, and that's actually the issue, because Nvidia has been moving away or like neglecting its consumer graphics card space, which has provided room for AMD to kind of re-enter where they're almost dead if you go back 3 or 4 years. And on top of that, Intel completely shitting the bed on
Yeah.
chip manufacturing has allowed the AMD Ryzen line to become the de facto standard in PC gaming CPUs. So AMD is actually doing fine these days. It's like weird that Intel has like completely shat the bed, and
Yeah.
that's what's provided. Like Intel has just not been fast enough to the market to make the hardware that supports deep learning and AI, which is something that Nvidia has gone all in on. And because they were quick to the market on this, they caught the AI boom early. I think they're well prepared for it, probably because they supplied so much of the tech for the crypto boom. And it turns out that a lot of what helps you mine crypto also
Yeah.
helps you
Helps you with
deep
AI.
learn.
Isn't that convenient? Yeah.
Yeah. So all that leftover crypto development tech, they were probably able to port into AI hardware. And now they're the biggest company in the world because of a series of happy coincidences. And they've gone like super all in on AI. They have a whole like their main business nowadays is supplying hardware for AI and also supplying deep learning models.
Yeah. Because
That's where they're making the bulk of their money.
because anybody who wants to dabble in AI probably can rent like a Nvidia data center or something. I'm sure, like right, like they're probably selling their services as well as their everything else. So yeah, but I
I'd
don't
have
know.
to
Four
look more
trillion
into
seems
that.
crazy to
That
me.
seems
Yeah,
right. But I know like if you're doing sophisticated deep learning stuff, um, you probably want chips that are variants of GPUs, which is exactly the kind of stuff that NVIDIA specializes in. They
Mhm.
make these chips specially for these applications. And like Intel has not been able to supply that kind of hardware.
Yeah.
They've really fallen behind there. This is not AMD's market. They're not stepping into it. They're fine. Like AMD's essentially been kept afloat by having deals with Sony and Microsoft for
Yeah, and
their
like
consoles.
random yeah, yeah,
But like
like
a
random
lot
things
of
that
Sony has sold a lot of PlayStations, and Microsoft sold a lot of Xbox consoles.
yeah,
Um, they've sold a lot less than Sony, to be sure, yeah, but it's still several million of these things are out there. That's a lot of money flowing into AMD's coffers from these contracts. Um, so they've been kept afloat by that. But there's essentially no other player in the space other than Nvidia,
right.
and
And
that's
it's I
very
mean, like, it's kinda showing right now, like, I
yeah,
mean,
because
when
their 5000 series has been another disaster. What used to
yeah.
be their flagship product is a product that is not selling enough to like not cause a glut of supply at warehouses.
Well, the 40 Series 2 was kinda weird. I mean, just from the perspective of, like, there was issues with getting it, then there was issues with what you showed up, and, there was more people who wanted them because I think everybody was building a gaming PC during the pandemic, so there's a little bit of lag there too, and I think just broadly, a lot of people got the 40 Series by the end of that, generation, and most of the games that I'm seeing and playing now aren't really pushing my 4080 at all, I'm still running everything up as much as I want to on Ultra, which is, usually what kind of spurs that drive is like the new generation of games requiring it almost, right?
Oh yeah.
And
I have a
I think,
CPU from 2019. I had to replace my graphics card more recently, and so I
mhm,
have 4070 in there. And yeah, I never have like I run things on Ultra on a 4070.
yeah, exactly.
That's
So I
like
mean,
nothing's pushing it.
yeah, and so if you're not being spurred to, upgrade because of the um of the games you're playing you're like because always the thing with the game was, oh well, this is going to be a PC, this is going to be a GPU intensive, this is going to be a CPU intensive. I feel like they've, like, I don't know if it's optimization or what, but they found like a really good middle ground where most games I feel like don't really do one or the other. It kind of stays everything kind of like right in the middle, most of like generally good optimized, recent games. um so I don't feel, I don't feel that I've got problems with, needing a new CPU, GPU, anything. It just always kind of feels like, yeah, I can turn off like two post-processing things and get 100 frames, and then I'm fine with that. I'm not an FPS, junkie. I'm okay with running my games at 90 FPS. It's okay. So, you know,
Yeah,
I
like I have variable refresh rate monitors.
mhm.
So like, if I'm outputting 100, I don't need to drop to 60 in practice.
Right,
I can
right.
just get 100. Um, or like, if it's running a little bit lower, say between 30 and 60, I'm not dropping all the way down to 30.
Yeah,
48 looks fine too sometimes,
yeah,
So I'm not really concerned about the output coming out of my GPU. And the 5000 series was probably a more incremental upgrade compared to the 4000 the 4000 was
right.
to 3000. It just was not that big a gap. So considering the exorbitant prices they were charging for it, people didn't really go for it. Then when they
Mhm.
finally unveiled their budget card, the 5060, there was a whole review scandal
Yeah.
where they're trying to make hardware reviewers review the game under very specific circumstances that misrepresented the actual performance of the card. Um,
And the other thing I think is for more of the like the in the space, PC build our own type folks. We've kind of known for a while now what a 4080 or a 3080 or a 2080 means right now. And now they're kind of fucking with like, what is a 4080 Ti? What is a 5080 Super? You know what I mean? Like they've kind of flopped around on what all these, not just, the general needs, but like for me, it was always 90 top of the line, right? 80, you probably got a little bit, there's a little bit of a trade-off between that and the top of the line. But then when you get to the 80 Ti, it's actually weirdly better than the top of the line, right? So then you got like the 60s, which is kind of like the budget model, the 50s, which are generally like, I don't know, like less like, power intensive, but you used to have that stuff used to mean things, and now it's just like whatever, man. Here, what is a 4060 compared to a 4070? I have no idea, right? Whereas I used to always have a feel for like, okay, 1070, 1080, 1090, I know what the differences are, right? I don't even know if there was a 1090, but you get what I'm saying? Like you used to be able to feel like where the prices belonged for what kind of performance you were getting, and I don't get that anymore.
Yeah, like I know which one is better than which other one,
Mhm.
but the relative gaps between them seem to have, in some cases, widened. Like the 60 to 70 gap was for the 40 series was massive, but the 70 to 80 gap was pretty small, which is
Right,
why I went
exactly.
for a
So, like,
70.
and then you would get the TIs that would split the difference. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So, like, the difference between a 1070 and a 1080 was a 1070 Ti, and I understood that, right? And the difference between a 1080 and I think it was a Titan. Was the 1089 was the 1090 the Titan? Is that what it was called? I don't know, but the difference between the 1080 and the 1090 was the 1080 Ti, right? So you almost always had that half a step. They would come out a little bit later in the run. So sometimes if you were waiting for the upgrade, you wait for the Ti, right? And then when that would hit, you generally know you're getting very roughly, the same performance as you would have gotten if you gotten the 90 series out of the gate, but you had to wait a little bit, and generally you're getting that kind of level of performance.
right.
Whereas now, like, unless you're like super reading, every single review that comes out, it's very hard to tell what kind of performance you're going to get from an Nvidia card, other than like guessing 60 is better than 50. Sure, you know what I mean. That's what I feel like now. Is that
And
I don't have that knowledge that I used to have, basically.
I think a lot of this is just like it's really emblematic of how Nvidia has neglected this market.
Hmm.
Because you don't get to be a 4 trillion market cap company selling graphics cards to gamers.
Right. Yeah.
This is such like this business is now just such a rounding error to them that it makes no sense for them to invest resources in making sure their drivers work properly or
Hmm.
making sure that they put a budget card out the door that doesn't embarrass themselves, so they need to go like create a review scandal
Yeah. And
to cover
because
up the bad performance. Like,
that was when they were
and then
saying with
there's
the
all
foot.
manufacturing defects on top of that. Like,
Right.
this is not the output of a company that cares about this product line.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then when you're always having to like read in between the fine print to find out, yeah, a 5070 can give you the performance of a 4090, but through 10 million little behind the scene bells and whistles that are just kind of making it feel that way. And then why is there a 5060 8 gig and a 5060 16 gig? That's gigantic difference, there's just so much out there where this generation, I feel like
Well,
with
the RAM
Nvidia that
thing, the RAM is would the VRAM would be by the actual card manufacturer, right? So that'd be like a Gigabyte or ASUS's decision to like pair
Well,
that
yeah,
around
but
the
I
RAM.
think I think they released a 5060. I think this generation there was a 5060 Ti that was 8 gig and a 5060 Ti that was 16, but they were both like chipsets designed that way.
Yeah,
I
like
think
they're I think that again, I'm speaking a little bit outside my knowledge set. I think they have recommended VRAM configurations for the chip. But ultimately, end of the day, it's like the card manufacturer that
yeah,
decides. So you'll get sometimes um they'll make a version that has more VRAM than the recommended spec.
yeah, but that's the thing when they started doing that with the 5060 the Ti's this time, um I think they were like the same price. And so I think what it felt like to me was like,
Well,
oh, I
is that like a 5060 from Gigabyte being priced against a 5060 from
no, no,
Asus?
no, these are their actual like releases.
Oh,
So,
because they
yeah.
do like for a lot of releases, what they do initially is Nvidia will do a run that it's probably like white label and they're contracting someone else to make it, but that becomes like
Right.
this those founder edition cards that are like the ones that are branded as we built this card, as opposed to we gave a chip to
Yeah,
Gigabyte
I get
or
what you're saying,
Aorus or Asus or what have you. Um,
but
I
it
was gonna
only
say EVGA, but the EVGA very famously got out of the game.
yeah.
So I don't know
I
who else is in that realm other than Asus
I've
and
just
Gigabyte
the
these
reason this
days.
is, like, kinda personal for me is, like, this happened to, like, my wife. I got her a gaming computer, I don't know how many years ago, right? And it was like one of those like HP Omens, and I want to say it came with like a 30. I want to maybe it was like 3060 or 3070 or something like right that. But then when I opened it up, I was like, this is not like a 3060. It's like one of those like weird proprietary ones that like the PC makers will use where it's like it technically is like a 3060, but it's only got 4 gig or something like that. You know, like some like
Oh, they
really
underspec
weird
on
like
the VRAM.
yeah, exactly. So I feel like with this one, when you're selling a 5060 Ti and both of them have the same name, and one is 8 gig and one is 16, that's a pretty big difference. You know, like
And
that's
that's confusing, but that's not
yeah,
Nvidia that's doing that. That's
yeah.
the card manufacturers at the end of the day, right?
I think it's. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look. I really think that this was. I think that Nvidia sold both, but I'd have to look into it. I think there is a
Like,
GeForce
it seems
RTX
weird they do
5060.
2 different Founders editions with
Yeah,
different VRAMs, but, like, we can look it up for the link dump.
yeah,
I mean, that's also part of it, like, NVIDIA's problem with branding. Like, if you've got 2 different, um like, say you sell to MSI, you sell to Gigabyte, you sell to Asus, and
hmm
then Asus goes and makes their cards, and Gigabyte and MSI also go and make their cards. Um, like at the end of the day, if Nvidia isn't out there like really pressuring them to make the flagship model from each card manufacturer conform to the standard spec, um, then like you're gonna end up with these weird situations where like an MSI card with twice as much VRAM might be priced the same as a Gigabyte card with half as much.
right,
Um, and like, sure, companies like the card manufacturers can run their own promotions or what have you, but when it like when it comes to just the raw numbers versus like maybe the architecture is different, maybe the cooling configuration is different in the one with less VRAM, so it runs less hot or something like that. That kind of stuff is just not very transparent to gamers, and so when they're trying to put together their PC, unless they're doing like
right.
really really detailed
The
research, it becomes
research,
confusing.
yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
think, and it's hard for me to know this because I know that they've had differences in VRAM like going back more than a decade. But I feel like Nvidia used to keep a little bit of a tighter leash on the card
hmm
manufacturers and like at least make sure that okay, for the most part, most of the 5060s are going to come out with this much VRAM. Most of the 5070s are going to come up with that much VRAM.
Because it's still it's dilution otherwise, right? You know what I mean? Like people are like, "Oh man, I got this thing and it runs all these games like shit." Well, would you get a 5060? Oh my god. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, you know, it puts a bad spin on the entire lineup, not just that specific one.
Yeah, I don't know. See, the thing is, I don't know if they'll ever be able to convince the card manufacturers to sign a contract that's like you have to build the card to this
Right. Yeah,
spec
exact to the
before you
spec.
get it.
Yeah.
Um, and because the whole point of like Nvidia does not want to be in the game of making the cards themselves.
Right.
That's not as high margin of business as like selling the chip to the
But
card
I do
manufacturer.
think there's a
But
potential for them to say like if you're going to sell this as this is like the minimum that you can market this product for if this is, you know, what it gets per, you know, frame generation or whatever, right? Like we know what cards were RTX on and RTX off when they started doing that, right? So that was a very specific thing you could buy a card if it did or didn't do. But
yeah, because Nvidia is the one that's advertising the features of the chip. And if car manufacturers are out there being like, well, we don't care about that. We just want the NVIDIA branding with the specific number.
right,
Uh,
exactly.
that's on NVIDIA to kind of like police and contract for appropriately, which doesn't seem like they're doing these days because they just don't care anymore. Because
Yeah.
again, this is a fraction of a percent on a balance on an
You know,
income statement compared to AI.
there's one more thing I wanted to bring up about AI, and this has been kind of bothering me. Okay, granted, most things about AI are weird, right? But um, have you been noticing people talk about like the actual like artificial intelligence in a game, like the way NPCs act and behave as AI? Like,
Oh, are you
have you seen?
seeing that? Like, are you talking about that New York Times story that like talked about how gaming has a history of AI because
Because I was like
AI is
Oblivion.
an NPC?
Yeah, exactly. I was so confused that that would pass any kind of like eye check and be like, this is not what we're talking about. Like AI has existed in video games pretty much since, the Ghost and Pac-Man, right? I mean, but like it's weird to hear people talk about that stuff as, in the same breath as what we're talking about now as, like these learning models and stuff, right? That is not what we are
Yeah.
talking about. We're talking about like, in
Anything
Halo, the
thinking
grunt throws a
inside aren't
grenade.
learning shit. They're
Yeah, yeah.
programmed specifically. They're not like they're not um amassing data based on Pac-Man's movement and then learning your Pac-Man play
Right.
style and
Yeah.
then like moving through the maze accordingly. They have a bunch of very simple rules that they
Yeah,
follow.
the ifs and thens, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not it's the classic like you can I think if you do that, you open up to literally calling anything AI at that point, anything that's ever been done on a computer AI. But
Oh
no, if
yeah, I
somebody
write if then
program
statements at work all the time. I'm
yeah,
an
you're an
AI
AI programmer.
not even trained as a coder, but because I write a bunch of R code, apparently now I'm an AI expert, according to the New York Times.
Yeah, there you
Like,
go. But I was seeing that, and it was just making me like laugh. I was like, we're not talking the same AI when you're talking about the NPCs in Oblivion that have a day-night schedule. That's not AI. You know what I mean? They're
like
not like learning that life is more fulfilling by sleeping later and doing it. They're just they go to bed at this time, right?
I'm
I
so
that
glad
was
you
cracking me up.
bring this confusion up because I think it's kind of deliberately engineered in a lot of cases
Yeah.
to obfuscate the differences between different concepts. Like your more standard learning models that have a lot of history and things like image processing or procedural generation, which has been used in all sorts of tech from roguelikes going back
Right.
decades to more modern applications like speed tree. Um, and then generative AI and LLMs, which produce hot garbage. Remember,
Yeah. Yeah.
was it like a
Just
couple of years
useless
ago now?
bullshit.
The Portopia serial murder case remake that
Yeah,
Square
yeah.
Enix put out, and that thing did not fucking work. Um, that's the kind of thing that people are opposed to. You don't see game devs launching onto blue sky tirades about Speed Tree. You know
Right.
why?
Yeah.
They fucking love Speed Tree.
Yeah. Yeah, cuz
What they
it's
don't like is Chat GPT and Copilot and shit like that. Because it can't fucking replace it's non-adequate replacement for games writers and artists and the people who actually do the work that contributes to a video game.
yeah, and I
So
mean, I think it's real testament some of these older ones, right? That you can confuse really good programming with AI from today, right? Like I think that's a testament to how well some of those things were programmed at the time, but it does not make it AI because somebody thought, hey, when I'm programming the grunts in Halo, every now and then they should just light their grenades on fire at you. I mean, that's not AI. That somebody told it to do that for under certain situations, right? So
yeah,
it's not the same
and
thing.
that is not a creative idea
Mhm.
that I think an LLM or generative AI model would ever have come up with by itself.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I hate to say it, but generative AI doesn't have a sense of humor, right?
yeah.
Like it can observe jokes and I don't know if you ever watched Parks and Rec, where Perd Hapley has this line about something having the cadence of a joke.
Mhm.
That's what generative AI can produce. Something that has the
Yeah,
cadence of a joke, but it doesn't
a
understand why a grunt going like setting a grenade on fire and panicking is hilarious.
right, and also it's like if you probably looked at, like, the actual math and how many times people died to a grunt doing that, it probably is like, "This is a very suboptimal thing for it to do, so we would only do it, during these fall." But, like, no, it's funny as shit every time it happens in a game because it blows up everything around it, and it's hilarious, right? So, like, even though it's, like, not an optimal strategy for that, character to use according to AI, guess what? We all love it. It's the funniest shit that can happen in a game. So yeah, optimization be damned, I guess.
Yeah, like how do you optimize for humor? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
saying that now, but you could probably come up with a bunch of metrics for things that are funny, and then like train your model on that and then run it. Okay, and then maybe you produce funny outcomes and you have like some weighting scheme between humor and optimal behavior. I don't know. Maybe there's a way to do this, but it does not seem like this is what people are actually doing
Right, exactly. Yeah,
designing this.
instead they're doing the weirdest shit with it that, benefits no one really. So
Yeah, occasionally get like holdovers, like sometimes on like subtitles. Certainly, I can translate that for you, and then the passage in
Oh,
French.
you know what's frustrating too for me is I was an English major, right? And I write a good email. I've been in the corporate world now for a very long time, and I can really nail an email. I don't like when I write a good email and people are like, "Was this AI?" I'm like, no, I actually did the work on this, and I don't use that shit at work. I'm like, I'm not training the machines to do my job. Fuck that. But that's the other
Uh,
annoying thing. Like, if you do a good job, now everybody assumes it's AI.
See, I work in Canada, right? So there's a lot of like French translation stuff that has to happen, and people will just feed it to ChatGPT, which is stupid. You should feed it to
Right.
DeepL if you're going to use like an AI solution to translate. You'll get a more accurate translation out of DeepL. Um, but sometimes you'll get like these models are not trained on like our very specific like professional terminology. So sometimes the translations they produce are just wild, and you're
Right.
like wondering why they came out the translator that way. And it's because they think a certain professional term means something completely different, and so the French becomes completely incoherent. And there's so many times when I've had to go in and correct it, and like because I know the French terminology for like my
Hmm.
line of
Just
work. So like go in and I have to correct the translation, and
yeah,
it
you
just
just
takes
wasted
so much
time.
more time. Yeah, exactly. It's a complete waste of time. Um, but a lot of times, like the French translations of sentences, like especially if they're literal, they're technically correct. They're just really awkward. You just rewrote it in French, like from your
Yeah.
mind, it would just
Yeah.
look better. Um, so yeah, that's something I come across a lot at work. And anytime I've like run into generative AI, it just has not been a pleasant experience. But regardless of how pleasant it is, this seems to be where a lot of tech firms, Microsoft and Nvidia included, have decided to throw their financial weight. And it remains to be seen how successful it will be, but it does mean that their gaming efforts will suffer. And gaming being a small part of a massive tech or entertainment conglomerate's portfolio
Hmm.
is just kind of always going to result in these problems. Um, Gaming, even as profitable, is going to be less profitable than the next big shiny thing.
Yeah, and
And
before this, it was social media, right? I mean, where's the
yeah,
place everybody wanted to play? Social media, right? And then everybody got the fuck out of there as soon as they could, right? So I agree. There's always going to be some new hot thing that's not gaming, but gaming is the one where if you can just play in this space and bring home 20-30%, I think you're in a pretty good spot. And I don't think anybody would you know, y- Microsoft's got plenty of money behind it. Sony's got plenty of money behind it. Nintendo, I don't know. I mean, it seems like they do some days, other days it doesn't. But I think there's a
well,
lot going on there.
Nintendo's kind of unique in this space because out of the big three, they're the only company that is solely gaming focused. And
Right,
so,
right.
I mean, that's not exactly true anymore because they have this huge entertainment division. And what what we should hope for as gamers is that the theme parks and the movies do not become way more profitable than the video
Yeah,
games. Uh,
they're like, good
because
luck.
then, like, Nintendo has been able to resist shareholders in a lot of ways. They are still a they're still a for-profit, publicly held corporation,
Sure.
which means that they'll eventually face those pressures if the theme parks turn out to be super profitable, and the gaming product will suffer. Um, Sony, again, same issue. They are a massive tech and entertainment conglomerate. Um,
Yeah.
and like you'll see decisions like PSVR that were just like foisted upon the gaming division that they had really no say in, and we got to see that thing flop in real time. I
Right.
should say PSVR. PSVR 2 was the real flop. PSVR did okay. Um, and with Microsoft, it's a a segment of the company that operates at, a much smaller but still sizable profit margin compared to enterprise, compared to cloud, um, like becoming the redheaded stepchild because it is just not able to produce the kinds of skyrocketing profits that these other
Well,
uh,
but you
segments are
do
able to
think
produce in the short term.
right. And short term, I think there is something because, I feel like Microsoft and maybe a few of these other companies, they've been around a little bit. They've weathered the trends and the storms. And I wonder if somebody at Microsoft is like, yeah, AI is great. If we don't win AI, it'll be okay. There'll be some next thing that comes around the line. They didn't win mobile phones. You know what I mean? And now
Yeah,
the mobile phone market is not exactly what it was. It was great for, 20, 30 years, but now Apple's dying to have people, replace their phones. So I mean, I think that Microsoft has just a little bit of an experience there to be like, if we don't win this, we just move on to the next thing, and it's not all in on gaming. It's not all in on AI. I
I
I
so
think
here's the
that
thing.
am.
I think people at Microsoft have that experience.
Mhm.
I don't think that Satya Nadella is thinking that way
Yeah,
right now.
that might be true. Yeah,
That's the
because
problem.
you
Like the
kind of see that with.
C-suite is bought in on this,
Mhm.
but rank and file Microsoft employees, even people pretty high up, like directors who have been there for decades, probably they're thinking, yeah, this is a stupid bet, but we have so many other profitable product lines that will be fine in the end.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think that's something Nadella's thinking. I think he thinks Microsoft is going to be the big winner of AI, and that is going to be the transformational thing that makes Microsoft the biggest company in the world again.
Yeah, because I
Um,
mean, but if you think about when has Microsoft been the big winner, it's cloud, right? I think that's fair to say, right? And
yeah,
then it's been OS, but they haven't been the winner in a lot of other markets. And I think Google's kind of been the same, right? Google dominated search, but every time they tried to play in another pond, I think Google kind of was met with, you know, stay in your lane. Nobody went over to Google social media, for example, right? And
Google
the
Plus, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and the
the
Pixel
thing is,
phones sell fine, but they're not,
Google
the only phones
products,
on the market.
Google products do get embraced in other contexts. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not just talking about the super successful ones like Gmail and Android. Like, people use Google Feeds and Google News and a whole bunch of other stuff, but Google keeps killing products
Oh
that
yeah,
aren't like majorly profitable.
yeah.
Um,
The second like they don't get adopted, they die. Yeah,
yeah, like even if they are profitable, even if people are using them, Google has no qualms about killing things. That's why there's a whole Google graveyard online
yeah,
that you
yeah,
can look
yeah,
at.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that cemetery's filling up. They're running out of plots. Like like you're
Well,
not open a second cemetery across town. Um,
it'll be interesting though to see because I think I agree that this AI, it's some in some ways uh it's a solution looking for a problem, right? Or a problem looking for a solution. Either way, right? I mean, my company's pushing us to use AI for weird things that none of us will ever use it for. And then when we use AI, they're like, "Why did you use this for AI? Why did you use AI for this?" Right? So it's kind. I mean, I'm getting mixed messages at work. I just don't know where we end up with this shit long term. I don't like it. I don't want to use it. But you know, if I'm forced to, sure, whatever. I'll run my emails through an AI filter. Who cares? But I think I think they've been looking for a business case for this thing for so long, and at least I've never been able to find it in my company. So I don't know if other people will, but no, it's got no practical application for me.
I think the most ridiculous thing that I kind of heard in my workplace is that we should use AI to develop testing tools for various like software applications that we have within the organization. And like the obvious question is, okay, but how are we going to test the testing tool?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well, so I work in insurance, not health insurance, but property insurance, right? And so a lot of times what they want us to use AI for is to explain very complicated policy things to people, right? In, kind of natural language. But that's
Oh,
very
but
difficult to do
you cannot
because
have AI hallucinations in that because you could
exactly.
be giving you could be
Yes.
giving insurees incorrect legal advice.
Exactly. Yeah. So like I do not use it for that reason because you've already made your decision. It doesn't really change what you're doing, but you're trying to explain it. But when you do it through AI, it's like, wait, no, that's not factually correct, right? And yes, it sucks to give somebody a big paragraph of crap that they have to get through. You know what I mean? That's telling them why something is or isn't covered. I get it, but you're quoting a contract at that point, right? You can't just make up, parts of it and say, yeah, this is kind of what it means. It means that, if you get a flu vaccine in April, you know what I mean? Like sometimes, AI just goes off the charts, and I spend more time trying to agonize over whether it's telling them right and pertinent and correct information than I would, just writing to myself, which is what I do now. So yeah, they've really searched for a reason to use AI. I haven't found it. Maybe it takes over, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But yeah, it hasn't blown me away at all.
Yeah. Um, Regardless, we're just two people in this
Yeah.
world, and it seems like capital really values this ongoing boom.
But,
And
but
it's. Or go ahead.
they valued social media, and like now it's like people people can't wait to get off Facebook. You know what I mean? Like there's always I'll tell you what I think is the next thing that I would actually worry about. If we want to get really crazy, I would be worried about Google, like just search in general, right? I think have you noticed how shitty the AI results are that you get whenever you search for something? And like if
Yeah.
that's where their brain goes is instead of like the old fashioned way, everything's an AI search, I could see people getting fucking sick of Google,
The
honestly,
thing
right?
is,
Like
like, here's the thing. I've noticed that the AI overviews from quote unquote Gemini
mhm,
are accurate most of the time,
right.
but I don't know that they're accurate often enough for me to trust them. So I'm always clicking through the link to verify the information anyway.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
there's
So
I haven't gained anything
you've
by
actually
looking
taken
at this.
more time to do what you normally would be like, okay, I'll look at the first link and then I'll judge if it's factual. Now I have to look at the link, like, blurb to see if that's factual, to see
It's
if I
like you
want to
have
go
to
to the link.
expand the result to get to the link that it's referencing, which is
Right.
such a gigantic pain in the butt. And
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't even have like a full list of references. So I'm just like, okay, you've consolidated three sources, but you're only linking me to one. How do I verify all of this?
Right.
Because it could be
Exactly.
true. I don't
Yeah.
know. But I know that large language models hallucinate enough that I cannot trust what is on the page in front of me.
Right, exactly. So now I've got to go through and verify almost twice. Do I even want to click this link? First of all, now did what I read on this link, is this even valuable? Because I might be reading an AI link to an AI article. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I just read a bunch of slop, and it was not worth my time. So yeah, I don't know. This is a weird time we live in where search has gotten so shitty. Like now I've got to spend more time just searching. I used to at least get, in 5 minutes I would get something that I actually could use.
Remember when you could ask Jeeves a question?
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
were good times.
I like
I
that.
still remember like, do you remember like old school search engines like remember Alta Vista and
Web crawler, that
InfoSeek?
was my first one. Yeah,
Oh, Metacrawler?
yeah,
Or
web
Web?
crawler, I think what it
Oh
was
yeah,
called.
Webcrawler. I remember that one.
Yeah.
Lycos is actually still around. There's Hotbot, Excite, and there's some weird ones that came up in the 2000s. Do you remember this Flash-based search engine called Car2 that used to
Oh
generate
yeah,
like
yeah.
a graph of results and how related they were to each other,
Yes,
and the
yeah.
size of the node was an indication of the relevance?
Right, and if it was
That
like basically one to one correlated, it was the same thing. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, that search engine was so cool. We should bring back Car2. Um,
Yeah, I
it was
like
French, I
I
remember. It was like car2.fr.
yeah, and I remember
Um,
you could use it to like if you were looking at something from one country to another country and you were trying to get it like, is this the same thing in this country? Like it would show you like the odds that the same thing that you were looking for.
oh yeah, it would show you like the a measure of the like relation between the two nodes.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
I like that a lot.
yeah, like there are so many other innovations in search beyond just like providing a list of results. And I wish we had gone more down that route
Yeah.
and different search engines that kind of specialized in different niches, rather than what actually ended up happening, which is every search engine and shitified itself to chase
Yeah.
the AI dragon.
At the exact same time too, and it's like, now I don't wanna use any of this shit, you know what I mean? Like, God, it's just yeah. It's very frustrating when you just, like I feel like our generation kind of was at the peak of time to use search engines in a weird way, because, like, I feel like do you feel like you and, like, people, like, our age generally know how to search? Like, how to get results for the thing that you're searching for, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
with
and
my
like I know some of the commands like minus this, put that
yeah,
in
minuses and
quotes,
plus and quotes and stuff like yeah,
like
but
wild
generally
cards. Yeah.
speaking, you know, 2 years ago, if I was to search something, I would get the results I was looking for 8 out of 10 times, right? And now, like with my kids, I've noticed they like the AI search, but they're having to go through second and third pages to get to the stuff that they've actually searched for. Now that's how they're learning to search, right? Is that stupid AI search. And I think it's like a step back because I'm like, this was how when search was bad, I used to have to go to the third or fourth page. Then search got good and I was getting, you know, top 3 of my results. And now it's like back to like I have to scroll to actually find the thing I was asking for it. So it's the enshittification of search is just bizarre to me. You know, old man yelling at a cloud, but I'm like, God, why can't I get the stuff I want anymore? You know?
Yeah, I feel like I'd be a lot less hostile to all of this if um like they didn't shitify the search algorithms in the process.
Right.
And I was actually still like I could just scroll past the Gemini overview and get exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
But if I'm
Don't
going
even
to like the
bother
third
doing it. Yeah.
page,
Yeah.
then like the product is worse, and you've put you've put a bunch of hallucinations on the screen between me and the results. Like you've made this doubly bad. I can tolerate
Right.
one or the
Right.
other,
Yeah.
but I
Give
can't
me
tolerate them both.
give me either good options or a lot of results, but not bad options and a lot of bad results. It's the worst of both worlds. But yeah. Oh well, I don't know. Big part of me thinks that this feels like a big flash in the pan, and I don't think it's going to be around long term. So I'm hoping to, outlast AI like I've outlasted a lot of other dumb shit.
That's the thing. Like we'll still be around. Like
Yeah,
we work in industries where, like, I work. Like I have. Like actually, this is gonna sound pretentious. I have to use my brain at my job. I'm
yeah,
paid to like do. I'm
yeah,
paid to do math for a living, essentially. So like, I'm not very easily replaceable. I will
yeah,
outlast the AI boom. I know that. What is not clear is that like tech workers will outlast the AI boom.
yeah,
Like they'll be out in the labor market or like looking for jobs, and eventually, some of that excess labor will get soaked up the once the bust happens. But how many years of institutional knowledge will have gotten thrown away in the process? And like how many like underemployed people will there be out in the economy working less than they would like and being less productive and contributing less to the economy than they would like? Um, it just seems like there's a path of destruction that could be avoided if firms thought a little more long term and weren't just like slashing and burning. Think of all like
yeah.
these game developers at Microsoft who have lost their jobs because Satya Nadella wants to build AI Jesus. Like
Yeah.
it's
It doesn't
it,
feel like
it
there's much like the consumers can do in this one because it seems like everybody's losing their mind at the same time. You know what I mean? So
like
it's not like
I
I
don't
can go ahead.
it, that's exactly kind of the like it's kind of a shitty thing to realize. But like okay, here's how I'll say this. If people want to boycott things for reasons of morality, I will never tell them not to do that.
Right.
Because they have their principles, and if you have your principles, you should adhere to them. What I think is very demoralizing to realize, though, is like an Xbox consumer does not contribute that much to Microsoft's bottom line.
Right. Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
not like a federal government making multi-million dollar contracts with Microsoft for provision of services and software. You are not an army carrying out a genocide on an oppressed people using AI tools to target civilians. Um, you cannot have an economic impact, even collectively, with thousands of consumers, compared to a government or a massive corporation, in a way that would affect Microsoft's bottom line and get them to change their and like change their
Yes.
underlying incentives.
Yeah.
And like that is really shitty to realize. And I will not criticize anyone who chooses to like try to boycott Microsoft products to the best of their ability based off like where Microsoft chooses to spend their resources. But like because gaming is such a small portion of this, because we are not the people behind the multi-million dollar contracts, the way you rein this in, like the way that this can be reined in, is like it has to be a governmental level. It has to be like government saying, "Hey, if you contract with an organization committing a genocide, for instance, then we are going to slap financial sanctions on your company."
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
way that behavior will change. Like, how do you get Microsoft out of AI investment? Governments have to stop pushing AI to the same extent and stop
And it's at the
fueling
same
this
time
up.
where every government is like so up the ass of all these companies. They think it's the future, and if they fall behind, it's like when we had like a missile gap, but except for now it's like an AI gap, right? So
Yeah,
these governments are
it's
all in on it. These tech companies are all in on it. And at this point, it's like you're just along for the ride. And you're like, okay, whatever.
yeah,
Someone will
like
find a reason to use this, or they won't. But
I,
governments weren't promoting social media. Now they are.
now they're like up here, especially they're trying to regulate social media, and who knows whether or not they'll be successful. But like, you want to rein these guys in and rein these guys in a way that like uh, in a way that respects and understands technology and not in like the
Right.
kind of haphazard way you're seeing a lot of countries where it's very clear they don't understand the underlying tech. See, for instance, what's happening in the UK with their age verification programs and how ridiculous those things are. Um, if you want that to happen, like your best weapon isn't saying, I'm not going to buy Keeper when it comes out in October. Your
Right.
best weapon is writing to your like federal representatives and
Yeah. And say like,
campaigning
hey,
to like make AI a smaller part of your government's priorities.
right.
That's the way that change gets made. Make an investment environment that is less favorable to this really harmful tech. Um,
We're at the mercy of so many powers above us at this point that I don't know. I think I'm at the
yeah,
point where I'm just going to enjoy what I can, ethically consume, and go from there. So, which gets harder, but
yeah.
we've
Like
all
I don't.
grappled with stuff, and I'm not going to fault anybody, you know, for what they have to
Oh,
do.
I'm not out here saying that my consumption
Oh
is
no, I'm not
super
saying you are.
ethical. Like I'm not out here. I'm not out here criticizing anyone for what they choose to consume. And like, I mean, my point of view is always that labor action and community organizing are more powerful forces in the world than consumer boycotts.
Right,
Um,
right,
I mean, consumer boycotts can form part of community organizing, but like yelling online about what you're consuming or not consuming is not necessarily the most productive use of your resources as a citizen in society. Um, Again, not criticizing anyone who chooses to boycott anything for moral reasons. So my point of view has always been like labor organizing, community organizing are our biggest weapons.
yep.
But like at the same time, I don't say this to be overly cynical. One has to understand the limits of individual power. And
You know what it reminds me
if
of
we
mostly is go ahead.
I was gonna say if you keep the limits of what you can do at your individual power, and you're not like acting collectively wherever possible. Um, you're not necessarily you're definitely not going to achieve your aims. At least there's a
Yeah.
chance if you act
Well,
collectively.
when you were like, I don't know, like middle school in Canada, did you guys have this thing where it was like, "Hey, we can save the environment. All we've got to do is recycle." You know what I mean? Like, we can be the difference in the world. If we start recycling, we'll totally solve every problem, right? And then, like, I grew up, and years later, it's like, oh, actually, that was like something the oil companies put out to make it feel like the environment failing was your individual responsibility, not theirs to stop, drilling for billions and billions of oil, right? And they kind of like pushed it back on us. Oh, you're not recycling hard enough. Then you find out recycling even was like only a half ass. Like they don't even recycle most of the stuff you recycle. And it starts to build up and you're like, like my individual action, I still am not going to go throw a can out in the middle of the road, right? But you start to realize that like either the fault or the credit you get is so small compared to like these gigantic conglomerates and corporations that just do not give a shit one way or another if
So
if they can save
sure.
$50 and make it somebody else's problem.
Recycling is a really interesting example because there's some things we're very good at recycling.
Yeah,
Like
aluminum.
most types
Yeah.
of untreated paper and brown cardboard, very easily recycled. Aluminum cans,
Mhm.
fantastic, like nearly, I should say circular economy, but we're very good at
Yeah,
recycling
it's like
aluminum
80
cans.
something percent. Yeah, is recovered. Yeah.
We're pretty good at recycling glass. Um, what's the one material we're really bad at recycling? Plastic.
Plastic. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
few plastics can be
Any plastic that
recycled
touch
into
food, basically.
products.
Yeah. It's
Like you have to wash out plastics. Like plastics with labels can't necessarily be recycled. Um, Even like supposedly recyclable plastic is sometimes labeled in a way that makes it hard to recycle. Um, and recycling numbers don't actually mean very much. That's just the material with which the plastic is made. Not everything that's like HDPE or LDPE can necessarily be recycled.
Mhm.
Like it's the ones and twos they tell you normally can be recycled. Not necessarily. It depends on the particular product. Like what goes into plastic bags generally cannot be recycled. Um,
But doesn't that hurt like later on in life finding out that like, man, that's kind of where I think we're maybe going a little bit with, some of this stuff. Like, yes, you can make a difference. Yes, you can tell people, but also, it's the job for a lot of companies and governments and stuff to really be the one who fixes these problems. It's not up to just me to, throw my Domino's box in the right can or whatever, right? So I don't know. That was a
your
tough
Domino's
lesson for me
box
to
is
learn.
generally soiled and can't easily be
Yeah,
like
that can't be.
recycled paper,
Yeah, you might as
right?
well burn it, right? So,
Yeah. Like,
ugh.
no, you're exactly right. That's exactly one of these things where, like, the companies tell us that, um, like, I'll get to the AI thing, but like, just on recycling for a second, you're exactly right. It was oil companies. What's the biggest input to plastics? It's hydrocarbons that come from crude oil. Um, and then those hydrocarbon chains through cracking processes form the plastic pellets that then get like used in plastics. Um, that is like oil companies and plastic product manufacturers that and chemical manufacturers that pushed hard for like plastic recycling to become this thing that they encourage us to do, despite the fact that so much plastic can't be recycled. And it's really demoralizing to look at, say, statements from and reports from various governments that talk about the necessity of a so-called circular economy for plastic when the tech to make such a circular economy does not even exist.
Yeah,
And we get blamed for not recycling, but like what the biggest portion of like consumer plastic waste is? It's plastic packaging.
yeah, the stuff that you put other plastic things into.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sell
You know
plastic
what?
wrapped in plastic.
That's exactly it. And
Yeah.
here's the thing. Plastic packaging is not something that the average person necessarily wants. Like if you sold like If you sell me a like pair of scissors that comes in a cardboard box that just has a picture of the pair of scissors on the outside, I'm perfectly happy to buy that.
Right.
But it's retailers and manufacturers that put things in plastic packaging. One, because like it's more visually appealing to like people shopping in a store. So like they see the pair of scissors in the packaging that you need a pair of scissors to open. Um, like that gives you visual represent like not just a visual representation of the scissors, you can see the actual scissors, and that makes you more likely to buy the scissors, despite the fact that
Right.
that package is hard to open. Also, plastic lighter than the equivalent volume of cardboard, so
Oh yeah, I
easier and
see. Yeah.
cheaper to
Yeah.
ship.
Yeah.
Um, and
And Amazon could really do a great service there and just like, hey, if I order the scissors that I picked out online, you don't need to sell me the scissors anymore. I've already bought the scissors. Just stick it in a cardboard box, right? I don't need it on all that other stuff. I think Amazon has started to
Amazon is
move to
actually
that.
very good about this,
Yeah,
weirdly.
that's what I've
Like
seen. Yeah.
Amazon, out of all companies, is the one that's sending you everything in recyclable packaging.
Mhm.
And they've switched more and more. Like they used to bubble wrap everything, and now they're wrapping it with recyclable paper for the most
Yep.
part. Um, Again, Amazon's probably not doing this out of the goodness of their heart.
It's
I'm
probably
guessing
cheaper.
that like it's probably cheaper to just like use like crappy recycled paper as cushion. And hey, if it's cheaper and it's better for the environment, I'm not going to complain. Let them
It's
do
funny
it.
how it works out that way, right?
Um, but like to get back to the kinds of like faux corporate social responsibility, the thing that AI firms are pushing is like AI ethics,
Mhm.
right? Like we need governments to set ethical AI rules, so that we know what we can and can't do. And really, what they're pushing is like, you know, they're pushing a vision of like super powerful AI, that will kind of like control stuff or take us over or start harming the general populace by making like decisions that kill people or harm them or maim them, what have you. That's what they mean by ethical AI. An AI that doesn't do that. And they'll
Right.
also happily talk your ear off about like getting discrimination out of AI and training it on unbiased data sets, etc. Like they'll happily, like AI firms will happily talk your ear off about all of that because those are problems they can solve. And if they solve those problems, they don't lose money. I mean, the easiest problem to solve is not making an AI that harms people because you just don't make that AI and don't give it that level of power,
Mm.
right? Easily solvable problem. And anything that revolves around the impacts on labor, that revolves around impacts on the quality of product, that's not something that they're interested in getting regulation on. So by kind of setting the terms of how AI is regulated, by advertising a dire need to regulate AI, they're kind of making it so that AI gets regulated in exactly the way they want, that advantages them and preserves their market position in exactly the way they want. And it's just as insidious as oil and plastic and chemical companies pushing plastic recycling as a solution to environmental woes, um, back in the 80s.
What a
It's the same
what a
thing.
time to be alive. like, well, it was like what we were talking about with the porn games and stuff already. Like it always seems like we're fighting the same fight we just fought. Just different enough to like feel like it's something new. And it's weird. I feel like we fought a lot of these battles before, but here we are again. You know. Um, but yeah,
I think,
I guess we'll leave it to the next gen to figure it out. Probably.
yeah, that is, I mean, that is like not to get too into like political theory, but this is going to be the endless struggle between like capital and labor. And
Yeah.
like you and I, like, as you know, we're solidly middle class people with disposable income, but we have a lot more in common with, someone who's working class than we do with like
A
massive
billionaire.
investors or like
Yeah.
billionaires. Um, like when we talk about the 99% and the 1%, that is an actual division in society. Um, And it is the richest people in the world who control the firms that make the decisions that govern our lives that are the people we will be locked in and will struggle against as long as we live inside a capitalist system.
Yeah, and it feels like they're always telling us what we what's best for us, and then we slowly find out like, no, we didn't want that after all. And the only way they come around to us is by realizing, oh, they're not going to buy it. And then if it's not money to be made, then that's all we needed to do. So
Yeah. Um, the last thing on this subject, to kind of bring it back to the impact of AI on gaming. As I alluded to in the disclaimer that kicked off this segment, um, a lot of, let's say, incorrect narratives about what's going on circulated. And I'm interested in reasons for why that happened because I don't know for sure why this kind of keeps happening, but I have some theories. And like why were reporters so slow to pick up on the AI angle? Um, I get the sense that a lot of people in games media, particularly as we've moved away from a more like journalistic model with a newsroom, like all these big websites like IGN, GameSpot, etc., used to have like actual gaming newsrooms and people working for those websites like had a beat. There's one guy who was on, let's say, the sports games beat, one
mhm.
person who was on like the hardware beat, etc. And then they know the issues inside those segments of the industry really, really well. Um, you don't really have that
Yeah,
nowadays, like
yeah,
with staffs having been kind of slashed to ribbons. And so you have like two or three reporters and a bunch of freelancers who are kind of expected to know everything. And you end up with people who are expected to not just be game specialists, but essentially be tech and business specialists. And that's not necessarily what these people are trained in. Like they know games really well, they know the history of gaming really well, but how many have practiced like parsing financial statements?
yeah.
Or like how many of them know hardware and tech really, really well? Um,
It's I think it's just always been take the easiest route. It was very easy when consoles wars where one has to win and one has to lose, right? And it's a lot more complicated when it's like one can lose but make more money and another can win but be like hurting financially, right? And I think especially when you start to see like the studio buyout frenzy, nobody really knew which way was going to win out, right? Between Sony and Microsoft, right? It felt like there was like two very diverging paths, right? And I don't think GameStop or not GameStop. I don't think Game Pass is as profitable maybe as Microsoft wants it to be, but I also don't think it's like losing gobs and gobs of money and is going to be shut down any day, right? I don't think that Sony is making trillions of dollars in the consoles, but I also think that they've got enough money to spend on keeping the first party stuff that they like first party. So they don't have to do what Microsoft is doing, which is, make everything available everywhere. So both of them are like winning and losing at the same time, basically.
yeah, and I think what kind of like a lot of what happened is because like let's be real, the Xbox One generation was in a lot of ways kind of botched by
Yeah.
Microsoft going in with like this big lead. Um, that didn't mean they started just magically losing gobs and gobs of money off the business.
Mhm.
It just means they lost the race to Sony in terms of moving units of product.
Right.
But it's very easy to make a logical leap from there and say, okay, well, that must mean the business is unprofitable. And it's only the massive coffers of Microsoft that are puppeting this corpse and keeping it afloat. Um, and that's, again, it's not definitively disproven, just to be perfectly clear, but it's very easy to amass evidence against it the second you actually delve into the financial statements of these companies.
Right.
Um,
Which I'm glad you
and
did because there's no way I was gonna do it.
I spent a couple of hours this morning, like making Excel spreadsheets, looking at the numbers off the financial statements. Again, my background is not necessarily in business, so hey, if someone who is an expert in finance or has taken more than two accounting courses in high school wants to look at this um, and tell me that I'm not running these numbers correctly, totally cool. Like I'll be fully transparent. I put a bunch of stuff numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, did some back of the envelope calculations. I have some idea of how like how much money Microsoft would need to be burning to not be making profit off gaming. And
Yeah.
it's way more than I think is realistic. Um, but hey, maybe they are burning that much money. I can't tell you for sure. Um, the other thing that's kind of muddying the waters right now is that there is this concurrent contraction in gaming investment. It's very easy to attribute any layoff that's happening at a company to that like underinvestment coming from VC firms or like large institutional investors or like shareholders pouring money into publishers. But a layoff at EA or Ubisoft is very different from a layoff at Sony or Microsoft.
Right. Yeah.
Um, like a layoff at Sony or Microsoft is part of a much larger company that has much different priorities. And it could be because their burn rate is too high in gaming and they need to let go of staff to maintain profits that are acceptable to shareholders from that segment. Or it could be because they see another growth opportunity elsewhere and they need to cut staff in
And
what
we
they perceive
we've
to be a less profitable sector to make more money elsewhere.
Right, and we've
Um,
definitely seen mismanaged studios. I mean, that's been a thing. I think it's way back. I think when we first started talking this, and it was EA was the bad guy in all this picture, right? Every now and then there's a studio that just they don't have it together, and they do need the big mean, publisher to come down and be like, "Hey, you guys got to get your shit together, got to get the game out," or more jobs than some get lost. All the jobs get lost, basically. So, I do think that there is a little bit of a reason to have these companies that provide that little bit of a push so that you don't end up with the whole studio. Like it felt like in the early 2000s, every studio was one bad game away from being done. You know, and then when
I
all the
mean, I
big
think we're
publishers
back
got,
there again now.
I think too. That's exactly what I was going to say. And then I think we kind of got away from that, where it was like, okay, there's a lot of big money out here. There's big money is protecting everybody, and it feels like now maybe you don't go away after one bad game, but the studio might get absorbed into holding house Conglomerates video game holdings or whatever. Um, that's tough.
Oh yeah, like I would not be shocked to see Ubisoft get taken over by like some holding company or like essentially chopped to bits and like the various
Mhm.
pieces get sold to holding companies based off their current financial situation, the fact that they've been looking for buyers for various bits of it.
Yeah,
Um and
I mean,
like
you're seeing that in all across. I mean, TV studios, or Paramount's trying to get bought out. Everybody's trying to be part of like a bigger something, right? And man, it's tough because I think that when you're kind of making a deal with the devil with some of these companies, you're always just you're trusting these capital companies that exist for no reason other than to make money, and thinking that they're going to be patient with your art or whatever. Yeah, good luck, right? Like
I
the
mean
bill
like in
becomes
some
due.
cases that might have been the intent.
Hmm.
Like again, not this should not be construed as an endorsement of Phil Spencer's actions. Um, like when Microsoft went on that buying spree, they didn't go on that buying spree with the intent of just like nabbing up the IP and then shuttering all the studios. They went in with the intent of acquiring the talent so that they could make the games to feed the Game Pass beast.
Right.
Regardless of what you think of that particular financial model or how ethical it is, that was the intent. Um, and then when circumstances changed at the Microsoft C-suite, and pressure started coming on gaming as a division, that's when things started getting shut down. Um, like even if an acquisition is made with the best of intent, to say like, hey, we just want to skim some of your profits, and in return we'll just give you a lot of resources to do what you guys want to do. like a lot of these acquisitions start that way, and they
Mhm.
go sour when finances change or opinions change or people get impatient. Um,
Yeah, and I think a lot of, the older studios at this point, and the older publishers have come to realize that, like, the money will be there if you can deliver the product. And that sounds simple, right? But like, you know, a lot of the studios that just kind of went away, they just couldn't deliver the product. We're almost watching it real time with BioWare, right? I mean, you don't get many cracks at it if you just keep missing. So, um,
EA's in
it's a
the EA's
go
financial
ahead.
situation right now is due mostly to the underperformance of EAFC.
Yep.
And like Veilguard did underperform, but the bigger story there is really a shorter tail on EAFC than was anticipated. And like, of course, that kind of put BioWare back under the microscope because of, I don't know, woke, I guess, because
Yeah. Yeah.
Veilguard was woke and that made people mad, which is stupid. Veilguard is a bad game for other reasons. But like, that's that's exactly the kind of problem, right? That like, even if you're successful, um, if you're not as successful as the Golden Goose, or you're not as successful as the hot new thing,
Yeah. You're the fodder.
then
You're
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 fodder.
what they feed the goose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you become the fattening agent to make the foie gras,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
What
Might as
do
well
they
just.
fatten geese with to make
Oh, I
foie
don't wanna
gras?
know.
I don't
It's gonna be
actually know.
something it's gonna be
It's got to be
something
something
terrible.
horrific.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like
Other
baby
geese.
geese. Yeah, exactly.
Oh God. Um,
Uh,
yeah. By the way, you were asking about the company that's the parent company of Avalanche. It's
mhm.
the Egmont Group, which is
There
a
you go. Of
Danish
course.
holding company.
Yeah.
It has like all these companies have names like
Embracer.
Cantilever Group,
Yeah. Yeah, I
the
know. That
like
stuff is awesome.
Kristen Group or something like that. They all have names like that. Egmont International Holding AS is its official
Yeah.
name, which is just such a like. It's more. It's not like more cyberpunky. It's more like modern business dystopian.
And it's almost more boring than what you would hope. Do you know what I mean? Like it's dystopian, but a boring. I think that's a Reddit thing, right? Boring dystopia. It's like, oh yeah, we got bought up by this company. They have trillions of dollars, and they bought us out to like slowly part out our IP and then shut us down and close us down so that everybody there can make 50 more dollars and they can make new studios with all the talent and all the IPs that are they're gonna do the same thing within 20 years, right? It's just very like cynical. Like how many times do you think the people are going to want to be involved in that shit, right? you know.
They'll lose patience. See, I wanted my dystopia to have more neon lights and body mods. Like
Mhm.
that's what I was hoping for. We have the most. We have like all the shittiest parts of cyberpunk
Right,
in
right.
our current
Yeah,
economic
they're the
system.
corpos that like don't even make the cut in in like the cut scenes. They're just somewhere in the background.
Yeah, they should. You know what I should do? I don't know if I'll get this is gonna be in legal trouble, but like I think what I'm gonna do for the header for this episode, and don't hold me to this, listeners. If you see a different header for this episode, it's because I don't have good Photoshop skills. I was gonna take like a screenshot from Cyberpunk 2077 and take the logo for the Egmont Group and just kind of
Oh,
Photoshop
jeez.
it in the background, as like all these holding companies too, like.
Yeah.
The holding company that owns Tim Hortons up here, it's some like Brazilian holding company that owns Burger King, which owns Tim Hortons. Like that, I gotta find that company and like find a whole bunch of holding companies that like own half the shit in the world that no one ever talks about because they operate in secret, and put all their logos in the background of Cyberpunk 2077, and then
This Egmont group.org webpage looks like something like a joke they would make in a cyberpunk game. So I think you're onto something.
egmontgroup.org.
It is god awful. The Egmont Group recognized that financial intelligence sharing is paramount and has become the cornerstone of international efforts to counter money laundering, terrorist financing, and associate predicted offenses. What is this? Financial intelligence units? I don't even know what this is. Yeah, it's something, man. Good luck with it.
Oh, I think this might be like
Is this not them?
a
There's like a splinter of the Egmont group.
I don't know because like when I go to egmont.com, the
Yeah.
language options are English and Danish. When I go to
Oh, there you go.
egmontgroup.org, the language options are English, Spanish, French, and Arabic. I think this is just a different thing.
Oh,
The
a lot of
Egmont group
Egmonts floating
seems to
around.
be
I think egmontgroup.org might be all AI. You can't convince me of that.
what is this thing? Now I'm
I know,
so
like stumbled
curious.
on some. I've stumbled on something here. What are we getting a call from my FBI agent any minute now? Forget that website you saw. Well,
I
this is
don't know
important
what this thing
information.
is.
It's so.
Oh, it's
What is it?
a it's a completely different thing.
Okay,
Oh, it's headquartered in Ottawa.
there you go. Go
I
go
could
pay
just
a
like walk
visit.
into their offices.
I know what you do here. You.
Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units. Um, so it's essentially it's an intelligence sharing organization, so that financial intelligence units of various companies can cooperate on money laundering investigations.
Oh, geez, I'm on a list now. Way to go.
Yeah,
I've
completely
cracked a.
distinct from the Egmont Group in Denmark, which is the media corporation.
Oh, better change their name quick.
Yeah, do you think that one Egmont Group could ever end up investigating the other Egmont Group?
We're under investigation by the Egmont Group. Egmont Group for what we did with the Egmont Group.
Yeah. um, that would be truly dystopian. Um, on that note, if you'd like to keep up to date with the podcast, we have a website, avocadogamescast.wordpress.com. And on that website, we post each episode. We also post a link jump that fact checks. Did I say link jump or link dump? I meant to say
Rink,
link dump.
rink jump, I think, but
Link
maybe link
dump.
dump.
We post a link dump that fact checks all of our blathering. Um, you can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or Spotify. All you have to do is search for Avocado Gamescast. We'll be right there. And finally, make sure you check out the Avocado at the-avocado.org. It's a wonderful community of folks who don't just
You
talk about
become
video
the
games.
character.
I become my character. Um, Imagine the head of the Egmont group talk like that. Probably not. I think it's a woman
Yeah.
now. Her name is Elzbieta Frankov Yashkevich.
Uh-oh. Is that
Yaskevich.
egmontgroup.com or .org though?
.org. Egmont
Oh, okay.
Group CEO is Stefan Krah.
Oh, do you think they know each other? Like they get like each other's emails like all the time. Like, hey,
Like Stefan Krah, like you know what? If we're on the note of fanfic, like we already had DK and Commander Zavala going at it, I think you could write like a rom com where Elzbieta Frankov Yashkevich and Stefan Krah, who are the heads of two different Egmont groups. It could be like Romeo and Juliet, like Montague and Capulets, but with a
yeah.
happy ending. And then like they fall in love on like I don't know, for some reason Stefan Krah's like in Ottawa to see the Parliament buildings or something. And then
It's
they,
like
they meet
Sleepless in
fall in love.
Seattle, but they meet each other and they're like, "You work for the Egmont Group? I work for the Egmont Group."
I lead the Egmont group. Uh, the thing is, Ottawa actually has a pretty large like C tier movie film industry. A lot of Hallmark movies are filmed here.
See, you could pitch this. This has the makings of a gigantic Lifetime original.
Yeah, absolutely. We could get like our original like this is kind of like a romantic like psychological thriller, but like really
Mhm.
bad. We could do that.
Yeah.
We could make this like
All right, we
an
got a new
Egmont
pot.
horror.
Egmont is investigating Egmont for financial treason or whatever they investigate, and they lock them in the Egmont building. They have to
Yeah.
escape the Egmont building
I
before
think we should go
Egmont goes
proceed
in.
with this. I think this should be like the next spotlight. Like we're going for best picture here. Um, anyway, definitely check out the Avocado. It's a wonderful community of people who aren't just into video games. Lots of people talking about music, history, recipes, all sorts of pop cultural and other things. Definitely check them out. Um, I think for us that's it,
That's
unless
good.
you have more suggestions for
Just
like
just
Egmont
egg
Group's fanfic.
Egmont all the way down. It's like turtles all just Egmont. Everybody secretly works for Egmont. We just don't know it.
It would be really crazy if like you woke up tomorrow and it's like good news, our firm just got acquired by the Egmont Group. Which one? Who can tell?
Oh no.
You just have to like move to Ottawa. Or no, you have to move to Copenhagen to work for the Egmont Group. That is what's in your future.
Oh man.
Um,
Oh boy.
Europe's great,
Uh,
um, in some ways. In other ways,
I'm good with
not so
owning a
much.
house. That'd be tough for me. I don't know if I
Oh,
can go back to
property
the apartment.
ownership. I
Oh
gotta
yeah.
have to buy property like next year. That's gonna
Mm,
be fun. Like moving from an apartment to a condo. Not looking forward to that. But whenever that happens, we will be there to talk about video games. So we will see you next time, listeners. Take care, have a good one, and go visit your
Egmont.
local Egmont chapter.
Good night.
Good night.